All righty. Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Ball Knower Podcast Team Preview Series. I'm your host, as always, David Miller, joined today by two very special guests. I pointed the wrong way. They're over here. I keep doing that. We're joined by two very special guests, and as you can tell from the attire they're both wearing, they're both Rams fans. So I'll give them both an opportunity to introduce themselves. So you guys can go ahead and do that.
Oh, okay. Well, my name's Evan. I like to go by LA Rams Superfan on TikTok. And yeah, just love posting about all things Rams. Very much looking forward to the season.
Awesome.
I'm Alex. I am anonymous on Twitter, but I'm Yup. I'm the original Yup. There's quite a few Yups on Rams Twitter now. But I'm the guy. I'm a dear, dear friend of Kevin Demoff, our president. Not actually, but he wishes me happy birthday every year. And I'm a big old Rams fan from Miami, Florida. Not too many of us down here.
Awesome. Well, it's good to know I got the OG and not one of the fakes. That's a great thing going into this. And before we get started, Evan, I got to ask, where did you get that shirt?
So I went to the last game at the Coliseum.
Oh, okay.
And they were, it was right before they did the logo rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at the end of the 2019 season, and they were kind of, having a big sale on all the older stuff as they make room for, the rebrand logo stuff. So I saw it and I was like, all right, this has my name written all over it.
Yeah, I'm a big Hawaiian shirt guy too, and I've been looking for a Bears Hawaiian shirt forever, but I'm not going to spend $140 on one, and I can't find one any cheaper than that, unfortunately, so I was wondering where you got yours. So the Rams, right? We're talking about the defending Super Bowl champions, pulled it off pretty much in the last couple of minutes against the Bengals last year, where Aaron Donald just kind of took it upon himself and said, this is my ring, I'm going to take it now, and completely disrupted everything going on with the Bengals. So looking at the offseason, I have some concerns. I'm sure you guys are going to be a bit more optimistic than I am, but I have written down key departures and key additions for this team, and there's a lot of departures and like two major additions, not counting the draft class. So just kind of as a whole, how did you guys feel about how the Rams addressed free agency, some of the guys they let walk, and obviously the two big names they brought in?
Yeah, so, obviously I would have loved to have held on to Von Miller. He was a very important part of our Super Bowl run. But, 5 years, the Rams just weren't willing to give him 5 years. I think if he was willing to take like a 3-year deal, he'd still be on the team. He's 33 years old, 32, 33, and 5 years for, a guy who's, probably towards the end of his prime is just kind of pushing it a little bit. So, it's tough to see him go, but I wish him all the best, except for week 1 when we play him. And then obviously, we lost Andrew Whitworth to retirement. That was expected. He's 40 years old, and as an offensive lineman at 40, well, any player at 40 really, but especially offensive line, he about did everything he could up to that point, and hope to see him in Canton one day. And then, yeah, obviously, OBJ situation still up in the air. We don't know yet. Maybe I give it about a little bit better than a 50-50 chance that we're able to sign him. And obviously you don't want to lose those type of pieces, but we did gain Allen Robinson, which he's looked good in camp. I understand. I know you being a Bears fan, you probably have mixed reactions about him. He has looked good in camp so far, but that's obviously training camp. We got to see how he is in action. But I think Stafford is by far the best quarterback that he's ever had, both in college and in the NFL. So I'm really excited to see what the two of them can do together. You saw what happened when bringing in Stafford, how much it elevated Cooper Kupp's game like to a whole other level. So I'm very excited to see what he can do with Allen Robinson, and obviously Bobby Wagner, maybe getting a little bit older, but he's got great leadership. I still feel like he has a lot left in the tank, and he's going to be good for young guys like Ernest Jones to help him get him up to speed as well. For those who don't know, Ernest Jones was a rookie last year, had some sporadic playing time, but he's expected to take a much larger role this season. And then the guy replacing Whitworth is this guy named Joe Nopum. He's been on the team for a while. He was kind of a spot starter. There were some games that Big Wit, had to take off, whether just wear and tear or injuries. He's filled in for him whenever he was injured, and he did a good job. So I feel confident in Nopum to step in as a full-time starter. The one thing that, will be missed is just Big Wit's leadership. I mean, he was essentially another head coach out there. I mean, all the guys really respected him and looked up to him. And I know he still comes around camp and practices and is always in touch with the guys, but it's obviously different when you're not there on a full-time basis. So we'll have to see how that goes. Sorry, I know I did all the talking.
Oh, you're good.
You hit on so much that but there are a couple things that I don't feel like you hit on that I feel obligated to hit on. Number one, the biggest thing I've seen from our offseason acquisitions that I feel isn't going to be true is Bobby Wagner. I feel like the Seahawks, I don't think this is a hot take. It might be a hot take, but I think if you take all the rosters in the NFL and take out the quarterbacks, I think the Seahawks for the last 5 years have had the bottom 5 roster. I think that they've been desperately carried by Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner. And I have seen a ton of people on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram bashing Bobby Wagner's play last year. Like, oh, he's so much slower. He's not going to be that impact player on the Rams. This is going to be the best defense he's played on since the back-to-back Super Bowl years. Like, he's not going to have to carry the team. I think that is such a big acquisition. Obviously, we know it's a big acquisition, but I think people are sleeping on that impact. And like you mentioned, Ernest Jones was kind of a baller last year when he stepped in. And he had that sack in the Super Bowl where he came up with blitz, which was awesome. Like, Ernest Jones is going to be a problem. And then obviously Allen Robinson, we've seen all the footage, everything like that. Underrated. Joe Nopum, he played 6 games for us in 2020 when Whitworth went down. He didn't give up a sack. So love Nopum. And Nopum played in the Tampa game. I'm from Florida, so I was at the Tampa game. And in the Tampa game, he didn't give up a sack. And that's an absurd line. Absurd line, obviously. We know that. So love Joe Nopum stepping in for Whitworth. Like you said, he's not going to Whitworth isn't going to be on the field, but Whitworth has been there, it seems like every day of camp. I haven't been at camp, but I see pictures of him with fans every day, it feels like. Yeah. So his presence is still felt, and I love our leadership group across from that. There's one loss that that we haven't talked about yet, the loss of Kevin O'Connell. I think that the Vikings are going to be way better this year because of Kevin O'Connell. Everybody, Colin Cowherd calls him the tall Sean McVay. I've heard very high praise about Kevin O'Connell. So I think the loss of Kevin O'Connell sucks. But we got Liam Cohn, who everybody, McVay is this is my guy. McVay is always talking about Liam being the guy. We retained Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris, as the year went on, the defense got better. Yeah, so some of the numbers for the defense last year, may be lying to you. I can't remember exactly where we ranked in defense, but let's say we ranked 6th. Well, we were ranked 20th in the first 8 weeks, and it just got better. And then obviously in the playoffs, it was unbelievable play. The loss of Von Miller, it sucks, but what you're going to do. He really stepped up in the playoffs. Before that, he played 4 games in a row and didn't record a sack until the Seattle home game. So his impact for sure. It sucks that we were going to lose him, but we're not going to pay. He got $160 million. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do we're not going to do that. So that sucks. But another big thing that I really wanted to touch on real quick, and then we can move to the next topic, is how good the Rams have been drafting the last couple years. And I remember I think it was the 2019 class. Everybody was like, this is or 2018, one of the classes after the Super Bowl year when we were kind of fading with Goff. Everybody was like, this is the worst class ever. And then Sebastian Joseph Day, Joe Nopum, a bunch of people from that class were in contract years last year, and they all got paid. And everybody was like, I went back, and all the articles said that was the worst class or a bottom 5 class in the NFL. And because we didn't have a first and everything like that. But like looking back, that class was stellar. And the guys we lost last year all got huge contracts to play for other teams. Even guys that I'm not a big fan of, like Troy Reeder, went to the Chargers, and he got big money. And Bastian Joseph Day got big money. So
he will be missed.
Of course, but I really believe in the drafting that we've done. And so everybody shat on our draft for last year. Everybody killed it. And Ernest Jones was good last year. Tutu didn't play. People are raving about Tutu in camp. Like, so I'm kind of expecting some of these guys to step up and really, I mean, golly. And I mean, we have so much depth at so many positions. So I'm not as concerned as I think that some people are. And I'm agreeing with you. I think it's like closer. It's over 50% that we retain Odell. I think it's like 60%. So I feel pretty good about where we're at right now. Sucks that we're opening against Buffalo, but I'll be at that game.
Yeah, I'm actually I still got to get tickets, but I'm trying to go for sure. I already took time off of work, so
I'll see you there. I'll buy you a beer.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. I just want to point out on one thing in regards to Bobby Wagner really quickly. Before, when Bobby Wagner was still a free agent and he was talking to different teams, I saw a lot of fans of different teams, tweet at him or whatever, being like, come join the Ravens, come join the 49ers, whatever. And then all of a sudden he signs with the Rams and boom, everyone's saying he's washed. It's like he joins the, I guess, evil empire or the super team, and suddenly he's washed. When I saw, fans of 5 or 6 different teams be like trying to get him to come to their team. So it's just funny how that works.
I think in terms of Wagner, I'm kind of in the middle with him because I do think he has taken a big step back. But I think with him going to the Rams, kind of like Alex said, he's not going to have to carry the defense anymore. So if you can get 50, 60% of prime Bobby Wagner, which is absolutely possible, that's all this team needs. That's all you need. Like that's incredible linebacker play on an already stacked defense. But back to some of the guys you guys lost, obviously Von Miller, I completely understand letting him walk. You're not going to pay, what is he, 30? We said 31, 32, however old he is. You're not paying him.
Right around there.
Yeah, you're not paying him $100 million over the next 5 years if you're sane. Like, I understand why Buffalo went for him, but that's an insane deal for him. And I can completely understand why the Rams, even if they could match it, wouldn't have, because that's just ridiculous. Sebastian Joseph Day is somebody I love a lot. I love Sebastian Joseph Day. And him
missed.
Yeah. I feel like just because he played alongside Aaron Donald, he didn't get near the credit he deserved. Like, I don't like to use the term underrated just because I feel like it's really overused, but he's definitely an underappreciated ball player that doesn't get the recognition he deserves. So him going to the Chargers is huge. That was like one of the biggest free agent moves any team made, obviously. Some of the guys you guys didn't bring up, like Austin Corbett, who was starting at guard last year for you guys, Darius Williams, who was a solid corner piece, Johnny Hecker. I'm surprised you guys didn't bring up the fan favorite punter. And
Johnny
then
Hecker was on his way out last year because we had Corey Boriquez in camp. So us as fans, I'm glad he got his ring. I love him. Love him. But like,
he's the man.
He was on his way out. Kind of the fans kind of knew this. Austin Corbett is a loss. But I do like – it feels like every year we pull a complete no-name out of a hat of an offensive lineman, and they're amazing. And then Darius Williams, if you would have asked me, if we were on this podcast a year ago to the day, I would have said the number one priority for me as a Rams fan is to re-sign Darius Williams next year as soon as possible this year after his 2020 year, which was unbelievable. This year, I think huge step back. He didn't record an interception, which, look, that's not all the corner position is not all about interceptions. Jalen Ramsey was the best corner in 2020, and I think he only had 1 interception against your Bears. But like, so I know it's not all about interceptions, but I think he was so dominant as the number 2 corner in 2020, and I think it was a huge step back. I think he really got picked on in 2021, and I think his only game where I was like, wow, nice job, Darius Williams, was the Cardinals game where Jalen was out. And I was just impressed. I was just impressed that we didn't just sell the game, right? Like, I personally, I'm not stressing about the Darius Williams loss.
Okay.
Yeah, and we brought back this guy Troy Hill, who wasn't on the team last year, but he was on the team for a few seasons prior to last season. He was on the Browns last year, and he already has a great relationship with Jalen. They're really close, and he knows the system because he played for the Rams for a few seasons. So I think he'll step in and be a good veteran presence as well. I mean, obviously, I like Darius Williams too. He did take a minor step back, as Alex mentioned, but again, I like Troy Hill as well.
Fair enough.
Troy Hill scored 3 touchdowns in 2020.
Yeah.
Damn. I didn't know that. Okay. I see the vision then.
For 2024, fifth. We got it for him. So easy.
Not bad. And then obviously I got to talk about Allen Robinson, who I have a lot of disdain for. If you watched Allen Robinson play for the Chicago Bears last year, it was one of the most just low effort, piss poor performance wise seasons I think an elite receiver has ever had. And I get it. He was pissed off that he was stuck in Chicago and the quarterback, it was a quarterback carousel and whatnot. But to a certain extent, like I question a guy who isn't willing to just play through it. Like if you're going to be on the field, at least try, but he's going to go into LA and be an absolute stud. And all the Bears fans like myself that have been bitching about him, everyone's going to look at us. Well, actually, Robinson was really good. Fields just sucked and couldn't get him the ball. And then it's going to be a whole big ordeal. And it's going to piss me off so bad because he's going to play very, very well as the second wide receiver in LA. It wouldn't shock me to see him and Kupp both end up with 1,000 yards. I don't know if that's a bold take or not, but it's going to be one of the best duos in the league very, very quickly, and it's going to become very apparent very quickly. And like Evan said, Jesus Christ, I keep pointing the wrong way. Like Evan said, it's the best quarterback he's ever played with. Like he's been in the NFL for however long now. He's pushing 30, and he finally gets a legit quarterback to play with. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. He's obviously going to be very productive for you guys. So like I said, I'm not a big fan of all the losses you guys took, but the 2 players you gained, you covered a little bit of ground with it, I would say, to the point where it's not like, oh, we're talking about the Rams being out of the playoffs or something insane. You did good enough. And then I also got to talk about Joseph Nopum. I love Joseph Nopum. I was watching film on him earlier this offseason when I was doing breakout predictions for each position. I just kind of generalized offensive line, and I came this close to picking Nopum. It was very, very close. But I was like, he might already be a little bit too proven for my taste because he has played very, very, very well when he's been on the field. So it was just kind of one of those things where he was a little bit above what I was looking for. But either way, he's going to be a stud. He's not big wit, obviously, but he's going to be a stud at left tackle. And I don't think it's going to be as big of a drop-off as some people might think for the Rams.
Yeah, and I just I was just going to say that, obviously you lose some pieces and then you bring in new guys and you got to get them up to speed. But I will say, too, that, the NFC is a lot weaker as a whole than the AFC. So if we were in the AFC, I would say, it might be a little bit harder to make a deep run. But really, when you look at the NFC, it's the Rams, it's the Bucks, who I think are a little overrated, the Bucks, but they'll win their division. You got the 49ers, always play us tough, going to make the playoffs. Packers, they'll be good, but I don't, I'm not scared of them, but they'll make the playoffs. And then you got teams like the Vikings, the Eagles, the Cowboys. So obviously, there'll be a surprise team or two, but I think the NFC is a lot more predictable than the AFC is going into the season.
Yeah, that's the big reason why I'm not too worried about the losses the Rams took on top of adding 2 solid players. Like the NFC is, for lack of better words, dog shit outside of the top couple teams. So the Rams are still they still have a competent roster, even if you want to say there's some holes here and there. They're still largely better than most of the teams in the NFC. So they're still going to get a top 2 to 3 seed no matter what, if not the 1 seed. Like it's not going to be hard for them to find success once again.
Yeah. And sorry, were you going to say something,
No.
Alex? Okay. I was just going to say that, obviously I don't want to sound biased or anything, but there really is something about the Sean McVay effect. I watch a lot of his mic'd up videos, and he really has the respect of everyone in the building. I mean, he's almost like an older brother to all these guys because he's really not that much older. He's only 36. I mean, and that's crazy to think about because he has been coached. This will be his 6th season, and he's not even 40 years old yet. And it's
really, has it been that long?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God! Ew.
He was hired in the 2017 offseason, right before the 2017 season started, and he brings out the best in everyone. I mean, not to say that every player that's come through the door has worked out, but for the most part, a lot of guys come in who maybe were disgruntled in their previous situations or were labeled as washed up or old. And he comes in and he gets a lot out of them. I mean, even look at Von Miller. A lot of people when the Rams first made the trade, people were like, what are the Rams doing? Giving up all these picks for a guy who's on the other side of the hill. And then, we saw the impact he had. And I'm just, that's just one of many examples of like guys who come in, even Andrew Whitworth, signed when he was like 35. People were like, shouldn't he retire? And, he could, if he wanted to play, he could still play and be very effective. Obviously, he just wants to spend time with his family, which is
I think if we didn't win the Super Bowl, I think that Andrew Whitworth would still be playing.
Yeah, I think so too.
And if I like a little bit feel that it was like even a toss-up, it was like a hard decision for him. And maybe even if we didn't beat the Bengals, it's just such a poetic, he keeps saying, like on all the talk shows and everything, oh, it's such a poetic ending. My old team with my new team for the Super Bowl in my last game. Like, maybe if we did it, like if we played the Chiefs and won that game, like maybe he'd still be, I don't know. But I think that was a hard decision for him. Big Wit is a monster. And that's what, I'm a big basketball fan. I don't know how many of your viewers are a big basketball fan. I don't know how big of a basketball fan you guys are. I see that we got Jason Tatum in the corner next to Justin Fields. But, it feels a little bit that the Rams are kind of like, for lack of a better way of saying it, I don't want to call it this because this might be a negative connotation, but kind of like a rehab center. It's like the Golden State Warriors. They get Andrew Wiggins, who everybody says is a bust, and then he was probably the key to that team in the postseason in several games. It felt like they were a foursome instead of a threesome with Draymond, Clay, and Steph. And it's like, God, Odell, everybody says locker room problem, this, that. He comes to the Rams, it's nothing but flowers. And it got to the point where he was so good on the Rams that they ran Baker out of town. I have a dear family friend who was a Browns fan, and before this year, I was like, what's your take on Baker? Because I've never been a big fan of Baker. And he was like, oh, how could you not like Baker? He's such a hard-working individual. He's always been told no, but he keeps proving people wrong. And this year, after like the Odell thing, and we're making, and then they don't make the playoffs, he was burning his Baker jersey. And I'm like, come on, he was injured. It's crazy. Like, you come to the Rams and you're a whole different player.
And I will say another thing to kind of compare the Golden State Warriors. Obviously, the Warriors have won what is it? 3 championships.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry, 4 championships in 6 years. So
they've also been to 6 of the last 8.
Right. Yeah. And they've won 4 of those 6. And so I will say another thing that the Warriors do a great job of that also the Rams do that you mentioned earlier is find these unknown guys, whether it's in the G League or the draft, like Jordan Poole and guys like that who, maybe have some raw talent, but kind of fall under the radar. And then they just get the most out of them. So, again, I don't want to toot our own horns, but there are some similarities there. So
hey, listen, you're in a position to toot any horn you want. The Rams are a damn good football team, and you should celebrate it. Also, since Alex brought up the logo, I just want to make it clear, I'm not a Boston fan. I don't want the association of being a Celtics fan. My co-host is a big Celtics fan. I'm a Bulls fan, so I'm miserable. But back to football, I definitely do see the Golden State and Rams comparisons. It makes a lot of sense. And who knows, maybe we're looking at the Rams as a team that can go to 3 or 4 straight Super Bowls or something, depending on what Stafford's got in the tank. It kind of comes down to that because some of these pieces are starting to get up there in age, especially Stafford, who seems to be the X factor of the team. And even Cooper Kupp, he's on the wrong side of 25 right now. Isn't he like 28?
He's
27.
I think he
27. Okay.
I think he just turned 28. Actually, he might be 29 now. I think he might have just turned 29 like in June or something.
Because he was an older rookie.
29, you're right.
Yeah. And I will say, if I'm being realistic, with this current crop of guys, we have probably a 3-year window to try to win another championship. Come 2024, maybe we continue to kick the can down the road, get a few more draft pick or trade a few more draft picks and bring in some more veteran guys. Or we might, maybe we get another one. And then in 2024, we have our first round pick again. Maybe we say, okay, let's start to not do a full reset, but just start to bring in some younger guys slowly as some of these other guys start to age out. But I think with this current crop, we have like a 3-year window.
Right.
Can I piggyback on that real quick?
Go for it.
So I have a take here that I've had for forever, and I'm just going to completely disagree with you.
Okay.
I've had this take for forever. Is after the 2020 season, which is we lost in the playoffs at Lambeau, freezing cold, whatever. Jared Goff had 4 fingers. What are you going to do?
Aaron Donald had a messed up rib.
Yeah, Aaron Donald had no ribs. Jared Goff had 4 fingers. What you going to do? Staley was out the door. He had already accepted the Chargers job.
Yeah, that's right.
I felt great after that year. That's the best I've ever felt about a loss at the end of a season. And I was like, next 2 years, we'll be good. We'll be real good. And then I have to worry. And then we got Stafford, and I'm like, wow, I feel great about this year. And I feel even better about the next year because especially during the growing pains a little bit in the middle of the season, the month of November, we didn't get a win in the month of November. Thank God.
It's wild to think about.
Thank God that's when our bye was, or we would have been 0-4 in November, no matter who we played. That November was tough. So during the growing pains, like my girlfriend, who's also become a big Rams fan, and everybody in my family and myself, I'm just telling myself, I'm like, all right, next year, 1 year under Stafford's belt, not everybody's Brady. You know what I'm saying? I kept telling myself, but I've been saying probably since 2020 is our window ends after this season. I think that's just always been my take. I don't care. I started watching football religiously and became a Rams fan in 2010. From 2010 to 2016, it was not a lot of winning. It was a lot of 7 and 9s. Shout out Jeff Fisher. And then I am not used to that. I remember we were like 5-2, 5-3 through 8 weeks of the first McVay year, and I'm like, God, we won more games than we did all last year. This is great. Yeah. I've dealt with a lot of not winning, so I'm cool. This franchise has bought. If we just fall off a cliff and get 8 wins or something, because we're not going to have 2 wins with Battle or how he is, Cooper Kupp, no matter how old he is, Stafford, no matter how old he is, we're not going to be a bottom of the barrel team. We're not going to be the Bears, no offense. We're not going to be with this group. But I think after this, I think people are underestimating. I think that Tampa is also in that group of. I think that they had that 2-year window. I think it was Super Bowl year and last year. This year, especially with the Jensen injury, we don't know when Godwin's coming back.
Yeah.
No
more Gronk.
No more Gronk. There's so many, Brady just retired. Once you're thinking about retirement, you're thinking about retirement. Especially halfway through the year last year, the Super Bowl year, you saw him barking at everybody. There was the Bears game with the 4th down. He's yelling at everybody. That was not happening halfway through. I kind of feel like he checked out. If the Rams don't make it, I would love. I'm going to be in the minority here. I would love to see Brady win another one. I am always rooting for greatness. I wasn't alive when Jordan was winning all those championships. I would always definitely root for the Bulls. I am always going to root for LeBron, no matter who hates him, who doesn't. I'm always rooting for greatness. I want to see you break every record. So I would love to see Brady get 8. if the Rams don't make it, I'm rooting for them or the Lions. Lions are my number 2 team this year. Shout out Jared Goff. But I think I think I would honestly bet on them like to be out in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Like this year, I think they have no chance of making the Super Bowl. Personally, this feels that team is older. So I think that it's the same thing where I think we'll make a playoff run the year after, but we'll win like 1 or 2 in the playoff, and that'll be it. And I think the window's closed after that. That's my personal opinion.
No, I mean you're not wrong in the possibility. I mean, we do have an older team. I like to think that we could carry it on for about 2 or 3 more years, but yeah, you never know. I mean, Aaron Donald almost retired this past season. He could decide to retire next offseason. We don't know. I mean, I know he's making a ton of money, but he could be like, I've done everything I need to. What I find funny though is that, yeah, when you go back to saying, we're not going to be at the bottom of the league, even, after these guys start to retire and stuff like that, a lot of people are like, oh, you sold your whole future, for 1 year. But people have been saying that since like 2018, and we've only gotten progressively better. I know we had that Super Bowl hangover a little bit in 2019, but if you really think about it, I mean, we've only gotten better for the most part. And, I know a time will come where it's time to like rebuild and kind of start fresh, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about, 5 years from now. I'm focused on I'm focused on this year, and then the next, 1 to 3 years. I'm not worried about what 2025 looks like,
Exactly. When we made the trade for Von Miller, I was at work, and I got that notification, and we're not supposed to have our phones. At the time, I was working at a Lego store, nice. and I had we weren't supposed to have our phones on the floor, so I had my phone in my locker. And I go to the back and I grab my phone because I'm going on break or something. And I see that notification, and my only reaction, it's a second, a third, Von Miller. And it's like, I didn't know Von Miller was going to be good. I feel like nobody really knew that Von Miller was going to be good, especially the first 2 weeks. He wasn't particularly phenomenal. So right. I get that notification and I'm like, I am so happy to be a fan of this team. I don't care. If Von Miller was a disaster and he walked out of the facility and didn't play a game for us and we spent the second and third for nothing, I wouldn't have cared. Then the very next week, I walk to the back, I get the notification that we signed Odell. And it's like if he was a locker room cancer and ruined the team chemistry and we didn't win any of those games in November, that kept going and that was all him and Von Miller's fault. I don't care. This is so exciting to be a fan of a team that does something and that cares that they want to win now. That's why I'm watching. I would much rather be the Rams since 2003, who have only had 4 winning seasons, versus the Steelers, who have had a winning season every single year. Now, they won 2 Super Bowls in that span, so I'm tripping. But if they didn't win any Super Bowls, the Packers have gone 30 years with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and have 2 Super Bowls to show for it, I would hate that. I feel like every year I was seeing offseason grades and draft grades and everything, and everybody always gives the Packers A+, A-, A. They're always fixing their defense. They're always doing that. They're doing this. They're doing that. But I feel like they're never actually doing anything. And this offseason, again, they had a chance to do something, and they just traded away the most explosive weapon in the NFL. Yeah. I would hate to be a fan of one of these teams that it's every year, the Rams, at least we're doing something. And that's right. All out there.
My whole thing is, it is so hard to win a Super Bowl. What the Patriots did in that 20-year span, we will never see again. I mean, let's be real. We will never see anything you may see a team win 2 or 3, but you're not going to see a team win 6. And so I'm if you're in Super Bowl windows are typically very, very short. They're usually a 3-4 year kind of span. My whole thing is, go for it all. Do everything in your power to get that 1 ring. If you compromise your future a little bit, well, at least it'd be worth it to get a ring. When teams try to play it, safe and just try to build through the draft, yeah, maybe you could get lucky, but chances are you're not going to have as much luck. I mean, look at teams like the Browns. And I know the Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year, but prior to last year, look at teams like the Bengals, the Browns. You know, the Texans haven't been around that long, but still, the Texans, you know, they have, or the Lions too, they have high draft picks, it seems like almost every year. Every year they have like a top 10 pick. And yeah, they get some good guys, but they don't really seem to take that next level. And I think a lot of it has to do with culture and just taking advantage of whatever window you do have to win. And now you're starting to see some teams start to copy the Rams a little bit. You saw the Chargers make a lot of moves. You saw the Raiders make a lot of moves. You saw the Broncos trading for Russ. So you're starting to see it a little bit more. And I think the Rams maybe kind of started a trend for these playoff caliber teams starting to move past some of these draft picks and kind of go all in a little bit more. You know, and so I've been a big proponent of it. You know, if it doesn't work, yeah, it sucks, but at least you gave it a shot, you know, and it worked for the Rams. It may not work for everyone, but why not go for it?
Yeah, I think speaking from the perspective of somebody who's a fan of a team that hasn't had much success in my lifetime, in my 19 years, I've seen the Bears go to the playoffs twice, I think. I think people that are pissy about the Rams' approach to things are fans of teams like the Bears who are like, well, next year's going to be better. The year after that's going to be better. They're looking towards the future. They want the future to be better because right now they're nothing. But the Rams have been in a great position where they've had a solid core, and they go out and make these big moves. You trade for Ramsey a couple years ago. You trade for Vaughn. You sign Odell. You trade for Stafford. It's because they knew this was their window. They needed to attack it, and they pulled it off. It's just that a lot of fans get stuck in this whole you need to be worried about 5, 10, 15 years down the line because these fans aren't used to actually winning or used to actually seeing what success is. They just think every team needs to have the same mindset towards team building. And it's just not the case because, like you said, we see these teams like the Lions and the Texans and the Jaguars that are always picking high and never go anywhere with it. The Jets, too. Even though I like what the Jets and the Lions specifically, I like what they've built. But historically, yeah. Or even the Packers, for that matter, who were a team who is a team that is notorious for not making big splashy moves. They completely build through the draft. Like Alex said, they had 30 straight years of Hall of Fame quarterback play and 2 rings to show for it because they're a team that isn't aggressive to make these big time moves. They're just afraid to. Whereas the Rams, like I said, they did everything they needed to do and they walked away with the Super Bowl and they still have a chance to get another one. I think the Rams team building, while unconventional from what people want to see, is perfect. And I think it's really ironic that the team building strategy almost is like the team building equivalent of how Matthew Stafford plays, where it's straight up all or nothing. Like we all know Stafford likes to he overestimates himself at times and makes big goofy decisions. Kind of like you said, if the Rams wouldn't have panned out, it's like, at least you went for it. And I feel like that's probably what goes through my mind every time Matthew Stafford throws any sort of interception, because it's always some deep ball that's just not within his range or slightly off. It's like, well, at least you went for it. And I know that's kind of a goofy comparison, but I just love that. I think it's very fitting. Like Matt Stafford is the most Rams quarterback possible right now, at least for like the current regime.
Absolutely. I love that take. That's so good. I love that. I've never thought of that. That's great.
I will say too, I mean, culture plays a huge role in things. I mean, you got to have a good culture, everything from the front office to the coaching staff to the players. Everyone's got to be bought in on the same goal. And I think the Rams have built that culture that not only, you know, do they get the most out of guys, even guys who kind of fall under the radar or that are labeled as washed up, but you get guys who want to come there because of that culture. And I think, you know, what a lot of teams should look at is, what is their front office dynamic like? What is the coaching staff like? Because that you get those things right, then you can really get a lot out of your team.
Something huge to piggyback off of that point, something huge that I don't feel like nearly enough people talk about. And you're going to love this. I hate the Packers. I cannot stand the Packers. We lose to them every year in Lambeau.
Yeah,
it's so frustrating. We play them again in Lambeau this year.
I know, in December, right before Christmas. It's going to be freezing.
How did this happen?
I already marked that one as a loss.
Of course. How did it's so frustrating? Every year, this is 3 years in a row. We play them late, like in November, December, January. The last 3 years, it's infuriating. I hate the Packers. I hate them so much. I do not have a hatred for Aaron Rodgers like my mother does, but my mother, her least favorite person on earth is Aaron Rodgers. She can't stand him. She just thinks he's cocky, and she's born and raised in Wisconsin. So she doesn't like that he talks crap about he's been quoted as saying it's a shithole. And so she hates Aaron Rodgers so much. But so I hate the Packers, but I don't think it's their fault because they don't have an owner. Nobody talks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
you just said this. I'm piggybacking off of you. You said culture is so important. The biggest thing in culture is having an owner that gives a shit. I'm watching Winning Time, the Lakers dynasty show.
Yeah.
Fantastic show.
And it's just Dr. Jerry Buss. It's John C. Reilly, and he's just like, I care about that.
He put all his chips on the table.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm going all in.
And so, thank God.
He had nothing to lose, I guess. Well, he had everything to lose.
Yeah.
Thank God we have Mr. Kroenke who cares. You get
throwing the money.
But then you get owners that care too much. Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
And then want to give power to Jim Johnson and then they lose out on something. And now, he's the GM. You can't be you can't be the GM of your team. You can't do it. So there's a nice balance of a good owner. You could say what you want about him as a person, because there's a lot of controversy, but Robert Kraft is exactly what you would want as an owner. Now, if he's the worst person in the world and is a pedophile or whatever's that situation, however that results, it's completely different. But you read in these books It's Better to Be Feared, which is a book about the Patriots dynasty, that Robert Kraft tolerated Bill, that he doesn't like Bill, and he's really close with Brady. And it's Brady and Bill would fight all the time, and Robert Kraft can't get involved in that, but at the same time, he has to give the power, but at the same time, he has to care enough. It's the perfect balance of the best owners in the NFL.
Yeah.
And if you're a bad owner, you are a bad franchise typically. The Lions have a historically poor ownership group, and
as do the Browns.
The Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah.
I mean, how furious.
That was the most Browns move possible. You give the worst human being in the NFL guaranteed money because you're that desperate for a quarterback.
And you piss off the guy that half of your fans adore, and you piss him off out of town, and now your guy is
victory.
Yeah, he got you the first playoff win in God knows how long. And by the way, I love bringing this up because I hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. He got the last playoff win in Heinz Field. Now that it's renamed, the last time a team won a playoff game in Heinz Field was Baker Mayfield and the Browns.
Hell yeah. But so nobody talks about owners and how important they are. I think it goes, no, it's not this level of importance, but you can't be a Super Bowl team, in my opinion, if you don't have a good owner, GM, coach, quarterback. I think that now it's probably in reverse order there. It probably goes number one is quarterback, then coach, then GM, and then owner. But I think those are the four most important things. And I feel like nobody talks about owners other than Cowboys fans talk about how much they love Jerry Jones. He's a bad owner. If I was a Cowboys fan, I wouldn't be able to wait until he dies.
You know what? What's interesting? I am starting to see some Cowboys fans saying, "Oh, we won't win a Super Bowl until Jerry Jones dies." I've heard a couple Cowboys fans say that.
Yeah, the Cowboys fans I had on here to talk about the Cowboys were very anti-Jerry Jones.
Good.
I think they're starting to come around. Yeah.
You can't win a Super Bowl, and this is a perfect pivot thing to get to the Rams' financial situation, because I'm sure you want to talk about how we have no salary cap. You cannot be a competing team in the NFL that's genuinely a Super Bowl contender if you are paying great money to good players. The Rams pay great money to great players at important positions. And I feel like not enough teams do that in the NFL. The Bills are doing it this year, and that's why the Bills are everybody's favorite to win the Super Bowl. I disagree with that. I think they're going to have a huge step back. I think that everybody's underestimating the loss of Brian Daboll. Everything I'm hearing out of Giants camp is he's a genius and Daniel Jones sucks.
Well, that's a whole thing. They need to get rid of Daniel
Did you hear about Daniel Jones hitting the disabled kid?
That was a joke. That was a joke. That was a meme.
That was a joke. That wasn't real. Okay.
No, I wish it was real. That was the funniest tweet I've ever seen.
Okay. There was a video though of him like chucking a ball 20 feet out of bounds or something that came out yesterday. That was just horrid. Yeah, he's awful. He's god awful.
Like that's the thing. Like the Bills, they're paying an edge rusher. They're paying Miller. It's an overpay or not. Got to pay an edge rusher. The point of football right now, the way it is you got to have a quarterback, obviously. You got to have somebody to protect your quarterback, obviously. You got to have somebody to make the other guy's quarterback uncomfortable. And now, because this wasn't like this 5 years ago, you have to have weapons for the quarterback to throw to. And that's why, at the end of the day, the Bengals, like, they have to get a better offensive line, or they're not going to be back every year, like a lot of people think. And look, they made it to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is that guy. I love him. And it was super exciting rooting for him. And at the end of the day, if they beat us, I would have been obviously upset, but like, God, I would have been rooting for them against anybody to come out of the NFC. So like, shout out Joe Burrow and everything. And it was dope that he was able to do it. But at the end of the day in the Super Bowl, it was that meme where it was Penei Sewell, anyone, Joe Burrow, or Joe Burrow on the ground because it's anyone. And then Jamar Chase open and you can't get the ball, which is what happened on the last play.
Yeah,
I think too with offensive line has just become so important because you look at guys like Andrew Luck, generational talent, but did not have a line, and he decided to retire early. He was tired of getting beat up, and like had he had a better line, who knows? So it's
I feel so bad for Andrew Luck. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's just such a sad situation, man. He really could have been one of the best ever.
Absolutely.
So sad.
Everybody, like coming out of college, like guys talked about like that. It's like Peyton Manning, John Elway, Andrew Luck,
and now Trevor Lawrence.
No, and now Trevor Lawrence, exactly.
Yeah,
where you like know that this is the guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they would have given Luck just half an offensive line, man. Just half of one. He doesn't even need a great one. Just half of one.
He just needs an okay one.
He just needed to be able to breathe for more than 0.2 seconds.
Yeah,
it would have been beautiful.
Nelson 3 years earlier.
So I think with that whole Andrew Luck situation, you started seeing teams focus more on offensive line because it's not the most glamorous, position. They're not, they don't get all the like superstardom that like wide receivers and quarterbacks and running backs and secondary does, but it's you got to protect the quarterbacks, so you got to invest in those type of guys. So.
Well, that's how you got to build a football team now. You build from the trenches out. That's why I love what the Lions are doing because their offensive line is already a top 3 unit in the league.
Right.
And their defensive line is incredible as well. They just need to fill in some of the stuff behind it. Like I absolutely love that. I love any team that has that sort of mentality.
Or Lions because like Okuda does not look great, and he was a top 3 pick, and you have other things. I mean, we'll see. Corner is like the biggest position where it's like it varies from year to year.
Yeah.
Darius Williams goes from my favorite play on the Rams 2020 to get out of here in 2021. Like that's just kind of the position. So maybe he'll be great. I'm rooting for him. I love the Lions this year, but who knows? But it's interesting the way that football has gone because back in the day it was defense and run the ball.
Yeah,
and
that's how football should be played.
We know you love the fullback.
Now that football is a much more weapons league, it used to be that wide receivers were a bonus, and now they're becoming necessity. And that's part of the reason why I think that the Packers take a huge step back this year, even though they're sick everywhere else. They're literally awesome everywhere else. I just think it's a weapons league, and you don't have any weapons. And Aaron hates being friends with anybody. He didn't start to throw into Devontae until 2-3 years later. Like he loves his old guys that he's played with. So like it's funny that now we're talking about it's so important for an offensive line and everything like that, and you can't do anything because the Andrew Luck situation. But yet every year it feels like we got another Joe Burrow coming out with no offensive line, and we're just slinging it. And we'll see that more and more and more. I think the Vikings offensive line is pretty bad, and they've done a little bit, and I think Kevin O'Connell will help. But I think Justin Jefferson is going to have a year a la the Cooper Kupp year last year, because I don't think anybody here. I love Cooper Kupp, obviously. Love Cooper Kupp, obviously. But I don't think any of the three of us would say that he is more talented than Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson, he's going to blow up. I mean, draft him number 1 overall in fantasy. He's going to be absurd next year. But I think Kirk Cousins is going to have 0.2 seconds to throw every ball. And they're going to make a nice playoff run. If you told me today that they win their division, I wouldn't be shocked. And I genuinely think, and no, they're not going to make the Super Bowl or anything, but it's not going to be because of their offensive line. It's not going to be because Kirk Cousins didn't get whacked a billion times. It's because it's a weapons league now. So we are talking about like the Jets last year. They grabbed their quarterback of the future, which you already had Sam Darnold, but whatever. You grab your quarterback of the future, Zach Wilson, and what did they do? They trade up for Elijah Vera Tucker. They already have Mekhi Becton. You're doing stuff to get him a good offensive line. But then you see Joe Burrow going to the Super Bowl, and he's got no offensive line, but he's got Jamar Chase. So then it's like there's no trends in the NFL. It's a copycat league, but everybody's copying each other 4 years too late.
Yeah. I think the big thing with the offensive line right now is it's super important, but teams have found ways to scheme around it. Like we saw with the Bengals last year, a lot of quick throws, get Jamar Chase the ball behind the line of scrimmage, let him work. Like it's not sustainable by any means, but for a run where everything is going to go your way, sure. But I mean, if the Bengals would have tried to run it back this year with that offensive line and expected the same results, they would have been sorely mistaken, which is why we saw them go so heavy on their offensive line in free agency.
Right. I was just going to say, I didn't really watch the Bengals much in the regular season, but obviously I saw them a lot in the playoffs as everyone else did. And, Burrow was just getting sacked left and right. I mean, the fact that he got sacked 9 times against the Titans, and they still won that game. But, it's just –
that game was also a little fluky, though. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again, but Tannehill really shit the bed in that game. If Tannehill plays half a decent football game,
he's mid at best. So
yeah.
Last year, people had him in the top 10, and people were consistently having him over Stafford. And I was like,
that's insanity.
I live in Miami, Florida. Ryan the Human Dolphin Tannehill was awful. He was never good. He was never good. Like, I don't know why people thought so highly of him. This is
because it's because his efficiency stats or whatever are high because he doesn't throw the ball a lot. He throws the ball like 15 times a game.
Everybody shat on Jared Goff when we had Gurley. No matter how good. He's out-dueling Patrick Mahomes. We're winning 54-51. And
it was wild.
Gurley had already had the knee issue at this point, and he's just trucking it all over the yard. Gerald Everett, no Cooper Kupp in that game. Josh Reynolds, everybody's getting the ball in that game. And everybody's like, yeah, Jared Goff, top 28 quarterback. Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, at the end of the day, some people are going to push narratives in favor of other players and whatnot. It's very hit or miss.
I will say, too, that, Jared Goff was actually very solid up until the Super Bowl against the Patriots. It's almost like the Patriots broke Goff because, he was just never the same afterwards. Now, am I saying he was an elite quarterback? No, but was he like reliable? Yeah. It's just that once that Super Bowl loss, that terrible 13-3 loss, he was never the same. And then he got paid and he started, spending more time at country clubs golfing. And so that's why the Rams, you give him 2 full seasons after that Super Bowl loss. He wasn't getting any better. That's why you made the move for Stafford.
I agree with the confidence thing and breaking Jared Goff. I agree with your take on that being in the after that Super Bowl, it broke Jared. I'll give you that. I will not give you that he was a serviceable quarterback the Super Bowl year. That Minnesota game, after week 3, we had 3 MVP candidates on our roster. It was Aaron Donald, Gurley, and Goff. And then, his only bad game that year, other than the Patriots game, in my opinion,
the Bears one, right? Yeah.
You killed him. You broke him really that game. That game's really the game where he got broken.
That's true. Actually, that was the beginning of the downfall.
Dude, Vic Fangio that year pulled together one of the greatest coordinator seasons ever. Listen, this might upset you guys. I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but I stand on the hill that if we beat Philly in the wild card, we go to the Super Bowl. I think we would have beat you again in the playoffs after what we did in the regular season.
I will say
what was the seeding? What was the Saints?
We were the 2 seed. New Orleans.
Because you're not beating the
1.
Saints.
We were the
I
2.
will give you you're beating us, but you're not beating the Saints.
I don't know. I think we could have beaten the Saints that year with that defense. We definitely could have beaten the Saints that year.
The Saints were nasty. That was the Michael Thomas year.
Here's I was just saying. Here's what I will say. So the Rams had the 2 seed back then. It was only 6 seeds that made the playoffs. So the top 2 seeds got a first round bye. So we had a first round bye, and so obviously I was paying close attention to the NFC matchups. And I'll never forget when I think it was Cody Parkey made the doink. Sorry, I was so happy because I saw what the Bears defense did to our offense just like a month before. That I was like, oh, please, Eagles win, because I would much rather play the Cowboys the following week. So, and we beat up the Cowboys.
We wouldn't have played you. It would have had to go to New Orleans, and the Cowboys would have still come to us. We would have still beaten the Cowboys. If you beat New Orleans, which I don't think you do, if you beat New Orleans, then you go to LA. I do not think you beat us.
I don't know. Like I said, it's just that defense, man. I had a lot of confidence in that defense.
For some reason, it's been a few years, but for some reason I thought that had the Bears won, they would have come to LA and played us at the Coliseum.
I just looked it up. They were the 3 seed.
Okay.
So
I thought they were the 4.
The Cowboys were the 3 seed. The Bears were the 4 seed.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I thought it was reversed.
I did too.
The 1 and the 4 play and the 2 and the 3 play.
Right.
So it wouldn't have mattered.
I thought it was reversed. So okay.
I thought the Bears had the higher seed. But either way, that 2018
it
year.
Doesn't matter. It didn't happen.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's another ring for Brady.
Right. I do want to say, though, that Bears-Rams game in the regular season is one of my favorite games ever because Roquan Smith got his first career pick in that game in, like, the goofiest way possible. I don't know if you remember. He, like, bent over to catch the ball, curled it in, and just started. It was just such a funny-looking play, and just that being our best player of the past 4 years now, his first career interception was huge. And then, if I'm not mistaken, the one touchdown we scored in that game, we threw to an offensive lineman. I think it was that game. Bradley Sowell. They called the play Santa's Sleigh. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
I loved every second of that.
I had a buddy of mine from Chicago in town. We watched the game together. It was not. I did not like. I was not happy.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's because I knew these. In 2019 and 2020, I knew that if we could just get above average quarterback play, then we can get back to the Super Bowl. So when we traded Goff away, listen, I thank Goff for everything he did for us, but was thrilled to get the notification on my phone to see that Stafford was there because we all knew that Stafford could play and we knew that he was tough and everything. He was just always in a terrible situation. And so once we got Stafford, I was like, all right, it's game on. We're going to get back to the Super Bowl.
I still can't believe the people that still don't have faith in Stafford. Like, I put out my top 10 quarterback list yesterday on TikTok, and I got a ton of shit for putting Stafford at 6. Like, I think,
infuriating.
Yeah, like 6, I think is a fair rating for Stafford. But people were saying he was way too high. People were giving me their top 10s, and he wasn't even in the top 10. People were putting him below Dak. Like, it's insane to me. Like, yeah, he throws too many interceptions. I get it. He turns the ball over a little bit too much. But it's because he's giving fucking effort. I would rather that than whatever the hell it is Kirk Cousins does.
Yeah.
Like, Stafford is an elite. He's an incredible quarterback. Alex is going crazy on his phone.
I mean, I will just say.
I'm pulling up this stat. I love this stat. It's infuriating to me. Look, I don't care if you have him at 9. You can give me the argument that there are 8 quarterbacks better than Stafford, and that is it. Do not give me – there are so many people that come to me with a straight face. I will not tolerate Dak over Stafford. I will never let you
It's an
Never let
insane
you make
take.
Dak has won what, like one playoff game in his career?
one playoff game.
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about the wins. If you just watch the two quarterbacks play, there is a clear difference in skill.
Definitely.
It is in here. Okay, here I finally found this freaking stat that I'm dying to pull up.
Oh no!
This is the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing. I feel this way. You guys don't have to feel this way. Wins are a quarterback stat. Wins are a quarterback stat, no question. So winning, Stafford has it over most of the guys in the NFL. If you want to give me, look, I think that Justin Herbert is better than Stafford, and I'm not going to argue that Justin Herbert is worse than Stafford, but Justin Herbert does not have the wins that Stafford has. So if you say to me that Stafford is better, I don't have a problem with that. But at the end of the day, you can say he throws the interceptions, you could say this, you could say that. But the argument against so many quarterbacks in the NFL is that they're not clutch. The biggest argument against Aaron Rodgers is every year they lose to San Francisco in the playoffs when they have a much better team. And whatever happens, just every year they're just in a position where they lose. Every year.
At home, too.
At home. Every year.
Which is supposed to be a big home field advantage.
In the tundra. They lose every year. So you can give me all this, and everybody has Aaron Rodgers at 1 or 2, and everybody has that knock. At the end of the day, Stafford, in the fourth quarter this season, including the playoffs, completion percentage 71%, pass touchdown to interception ratio 14-0, and a passer rating of 123. He is the best fourth quarter quarterback in the NFL. And at the end of the day, if wins are a quarterback stat, there is nobody you should rather have in the fourth quarter down by 5 than Matthew Stafford. That is my pitch.
I will just say this too. Yes, he throws a lot of interceptions, but you just see how much he just elevates the wide receivers around him. Again, look at Odell. You know, he had a couple good years with the Giants, but then, you know, he falls off in Cleveland. Everyone's saying, you know, they were like, oh, he's living off that one catch and he's, you know, locker room cancer. He comes in, and had he not gotten hurt in the Super Bowl, he could have been the Super Bowl MVP. You see Cooper Kupp, which everyone, you know, always thought was good but never elite, have like the best single season of any wide receiver ever. And I just think, you know, you got to give Stafford credit for coming into a new system after he's been with the same team for 12, 13 years. He comes into a brand new system, and in the first year, the team wins the Super Bowl. Now, I know it's a team game. Aaron Donald played a huge role. Von Miller played a huge role, but I mean, just look at that last drive in the Super Bowl. It was just him and Kupp. The running game, you know, in the second half, the running game was doing nothing. Odell was hurt. Higbee was out. Robert Woods had been hurt for a while. None of the other receivers were. Oh God. He's got to step it up this year. Speaking of Ben Skoranek.
I'm rooting for him, and
I am too.
He was good in the Jags game, and he was good in the Texans game. The issue is those are two of the worst defenses in the NFL. I was at the 49ers game in the NFC Championship.
I was there
and
too.
I was closer to the end zone of the dropped ball. Like, that's where my seat was, like, high, but, like, that's in that corner.
I was in the 300 level. I was in the 300 level. Where were you? I sat inside that end zone. Okay.
I was I was that end zone, so I see that, and I'm like, boom.
I saw it, too. I was just like this.
But Super Bowl MVP, this is my favorite thing to talk about with Rams fans, not Rams fans, because everybody watches the Super Bowl. And this is the one thing I wanted to talk about on this cast, and you brought it up so I could piggyback off of you. Odell would have won Super Bowl MVP if he stayed healthy. I think a lot of people have that opinion, including Jalen Ramsey, including Odell himself. Like, a bunch of people have that opinion.
Cooper Kupp would have said that too. So.
Cooper Kupp would totally sell that. He's the humblest guy in the league.
He even said, he's like, I don't know if I deserve this. I'm like, of course you deserve it too.
That is my take, though, is I think of the big three, Donald, Kupp, and Stafford, I do feel that Kupp was the least deserving of Super Bowl MVP of those three.
Interesting.
I can get behind that.
Here is my take. Now, I have no problem with him winning it, and especially after the season he had, and now for the rest of my life, I will get to brag that my wide receiver out of Eastern Washington had the best wide receiver season of all time. So, like, I love that he got it, but Stafford, they're not going to give it to him because he threw the 2 picks. Well, the one pick was in and out of the hands of Ben Skoranek. The other one was a 3rd and 18. It was the play after Odell got injured. So we have nothing. We have nothing that we're going to do. It's an arm punt. I don't care that he did it. If you get it, it's a touchdown. And if you don't, That's exactly what would have happened on the next play. So I don't care about the 2 interceptions. That's why they didn't give it to Stafford, because Stafford made the biggest throw of anybody's career ever, which is the no-looker.
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh, shit. So
he's been doing that in practice with Allen Robinson.
I saved the video. I almost started crying.
I posted it on my TikTok.
There was a no-looker from to Darrell Henderson last offseason, and that's what got me like, oh, this is going to be different. But I think Aaron Donald probably deserved Super Bowl MVP the most.
I'd give it to Donald over anybody, yeah. Especially considering he basically decided the game on that last play.
Yeah, that's not even what I'm talking about. We had 7 sacks, not including the last play, which is pretty much a sack. If you count the last play, that's his 3rd sack of the game.
Yeah.
And everybody that watches film, all of the PFF guys that say that Aaron Donald is the best player of all time, every analyst, get the stats. You can look at the stats, or you can look at it. On every play, Aaron Donald has 2 to 3 guys on him. And that's why Von Miller was able to get 2 sacks. That's why Ernest Jones.
Well, that's why they brought in a guy like Von. That's why they brought in Von Miller, because they know that Aaron Donald is always double teamed. So they needed another elite pass rusher to, you know, so that they don't. So they have to focus on someone else and not just Aaron Donald. Now, Greg Gaines and Ashawn Robinson are very underrated, but they're not Von Miller, though. So.
Greg Gaines is the fastest player in the NFL, and Tyreek Hill is now in Miami. Tyreek Hill is 10 minutes away from me, and I'll tell him to his face. Greg Gaines.
I want a recording of this, and I'll post it on my TikTok of you going to Tyreek Hill and telling him he's no longer the fastest player in the NFL.
I'm not going to go that far, but
he is not the fastest guy. Greg Gaines is the greatest, the fastest player in the NFL, and I will think we could actually like not, because obviously Tyreek Hill would beat him in a race and everything, but like I bet you that we could get some stats where it's like body weight, how fast your legs are moving, how fast this. I bet you we could come up with some kind of BS stat.
My man is digging deep.
Greg Gaines is faster.
Yeah.
He's digging deep.
I don't know if I would go that far. I don't know if I would go that far, but I will say that even though we lost Vaughn, we got some guys in there who aren't really like superstars, but are very productive.
That's all you need with Aaron Donald, man.
Yeah.
That's really all you
had
need.
3 sacks in the opener against your Bears.
Don't remind
And
me.
then he went down and
Stop. Listen, there has been so much shit talked on the Chicago Bears for a Los Angeles Rams podcast. It is insane.
I think we've played you guys like the last.
You play us every year.
2019, last 4 years.
We don't play this year, though. We don't play this year.
Yeah.
Thank God.
2019, 2020, and last year we played like all 4 years. And it's funny because it was one time in Chicago, and that was the one time you beat us was in Chicago. The other 3 times were in LA, and we won those 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny how that works. But
but
yeah, I guess. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, just real quick on the Bears thing. I know this is a Rams podcast. I mean, real quick, what's your opinion on Eberflus? Because I think it's the worst hire in the NFL.
What?
Yeah.
Why? Because he's defensive minded?
Yes, you can't have a defensive-minded coach for a young, developing quarterback. You can't do it. What do we do?
What did the Chargers just do with Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley?
And did they make the playoffs? And will they make the playoffs this year? I bet you. I'll bet you $20 right now.
I think they'll make the playoffs.
They have a lot better shot now that they have a competent defense. Absolutely.
I think they'll make the playoffs.
Besides, wins aren't a quarterback. Listen, I know that's your thing, but wins aren't a quarterback stat in my eyes. Herbert's a damn good ball player, and he had a defensive head coach develop him. Look at Buffalo. I know Brian Dable had a big hand in it, but Sean McDermott was still a big piece of developing Josh Allen. Chicago brought in Luke Getsy, who is going to be our Brian Dable equivalent. Obviously not as good, but that's the thought process.
After this year, if he's good. If he's good,
okay.
You will lose him this year.
Fields develops, we don't need an elite offensive coordinator. We just need.
I can't.
Hey, look, anyone's better than Matt Nagy.
Exactly.
Right?
First of all, anything's better than Matt Nagy. Second of all, Eberflus is exactly what this team needed because the team needed a complete culture reset, and that's Eberflus's thing. He's a culture guy. He's an effort guy, and Chicago had none of that under Matt Nagy whatsoever.
And I think, look, it's very easy for us Rams fans to see, like, you go from Jeff Fisher to Sean McVay, and the team does a complete 180 in 1 year when Sean McVay comes in. But I think in most cases, when you get rid of a terrible head coach, you got to give the new person
it's going to be a slow burn.
At least 1 season, maybe 2 seasons to really get going.
Yeah, it's going to be a slow burn.
McVay is an exception.
Yeah. And listen, even if Getsy has a great year, Chicago's going to win like 3 or 4 ball games. Nobody's going to hire an offensive coordinator as their head coach if this team just won 3 or 4 ball games. It's not going to happen. So we got at least 2 years of Getsy.
You're absolutely right, but the Colts won 10 games and didn't make the playoffs, and you hired Eberflus. So if
that's different though, because we were looking. It's different when we're talking about a defensive coordinator who took on paper a terrible defense, made them above average, and like I said, is the complete opposite of Nagy mentality wise. The big reason they brought in Eberflus was for the culture change. That was the biggest thing about it.
Culture's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were just preaching culture 15 minutes ago. That's the whole reason we brought in Eberflus, was to flip the culture, because Matt Nagy was very much the players coach, the chill guy. We're going to do dance parties in the locker room. If you want to take a play off, by all means. Eberflus is high effort, high intensity. Everybody needs to do their fucking job or get off my field. We're not doing any of this bullshit. We're not putting up with any of it. You're either playing your best football every second you're on the field, or you're not playing for my ball team. He is the anti-Matt Nagy. That's why they hired Eberflus.
And that is the attitude of the greatest football dynasty of all time. The New England Patriots. It's the do your job, and it's a defensive head coach. But since losing the greatest player of all time, they have been on a nosedive, and I don't know how anybody feels about them with Matt Patricia at offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Sure.
Okay, well, we don't have Matt Patricia at offensive coordinator. We have a competent offensive mind.
Let's hope so.
Here's what I'd say. We just never know. When the Rams first hired Sean McVay, to be honest, I had no idea who he was, because I didn't watch Washington a lot, and obviously I wanted an offensive-minded coach, but I was like, all right, I don't know anything about McVay, but I'm going to give him a shot. And then I see that first game against the Colts we had. Granted, the Colts were one of the worst teams in the league that year, but we still put up like 40-plus points in Sean McVay's first game as a head coach. And I'm like, all right, this guy's different. I could just tell right away, this guy, he just completely did a complete culture shift, and you never know. So in the Bears' defense, sometimes you got to take some gambles.
I am rooting for the Bears because I think they are one of the most important franchises in the NFL. And I think the league is better when the Bears are better. And I was personally upset by the hiring of Eberflus, and I would like to be proven wrong. I want to make that clear.
Well, I'm going to tell you with full confidence that you will be. It won't be this year. It's going to be a rough year. Don't twist. Don't expect me to. It's going to be good this year.
It's probably you guys or Seattle as the 2 worst teams.
I don't know. I think Atlanta's worse.
Atlanta. Yeah, you're right.
I'm taking Chicago over like Houston, Jacksonville. Yep. I mean, we're still talking bottom 5 football team.
Jacksonville might win like 6.
Listen, I hate everything Jacksonville did this offseason. They had such a their offseason fucking mindset was, let's overpay mediocre talent because we have a shit ton of cap and we don't know what to do with it. Right. And then they go into the draft and they're like, Trayvon Walker, I guess. And so they made one of the most forgettable first overall picks in NFL history. Like, I see the vision with Walker, but he's a complete project. You pretty much have to teach the kid how to rush the passer. And we saw them try to do that with another guy named Kayvon Chason, who granted is much worse, but Chason is like one of the biggest draft busts in that team's franchise history.
That's the Rams pick, by the way.
It was? Oh my God. I didn't know that.
Of Jacksonville,
Travis Etienne will have a good year. Kayvon Chason were our Jalen Ramsey picks.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
I was going to say, speaking of Jacksonville, I'm sure you heard about it like 2 weeks ago. They're like, because, the Bears are trying to get that new stadium and they might move to Arlington Heights, I think it is. And they're like, oh, maybe Jacksonville will play in Soldier Field. I'm like, that's not going to work. If anything, move the Jaguars to St. Louis or something. So.
Yeah, they're not going to put another. Listen, Chicago. It's going to be like the Jets and the Giants playing in New Jersey. They're still going to be the Chicago Bears. They're just going to be playing in a much better stadium because Soldier Field, to my understanding, because I've actually never been, is a complete shithole. Like, it has been ruined. It used to be like an
80-year-old stadium, I think.
Well, it used to be a national landmark. And then, listen, this is a great tie-in because I wanted to go back to what Alex was saying like 20, 30 minutes ago now, talking about culture and ownership. The Chicago Bears owners at this point, well, chairman, right? The owner is Virginia McCaskey, who was a 90-year-old woman and the granddaughter of George Halas. But she doesn't run the team. Her sons do, the McCaskies. They are the chairman of the team, George McCaskey mainly. They don't know sports. They run this team like it's a law firm, which is fucking hysterical. And they did a thing a couple years ago to renovate Soldier Field, and it decreased the amount of people it could fit. It was one of the only renovations in sports history that decreased the amount of people you could fit in the stadium. And then these dumbasses on top of that, a couple years ago, it's been about 7-8 years ago now, they were trying to back a bill that would make it so any athlete in Chicago or that played in Chicago over the age of 30 wouldn't get healthcare benefits because they wanted to cheap out. So, I just wanted to bring that up because the Bears are an example of an organization that's run like shit. Like, in terms of the ownership, like, Virginia, bless her heart, she loves this team. It's her granddad or great-granddad's, like, baby, right? But, her sons, no idea what they're doing, and are just kind of out there. And I love that everything I've seen so far with the new regime with Ryan Poles has Ryan just kind of been like, okay, George, you go play in the corner and we're going to do big boy stuff now. He's like, okay, Ryan, and just kind of goes off to the side and let Poles do his thing, which is great because Ryan Pace and George McCaskey were like this. They were besties, and that's why Ryan Pace lasted so goddamn long, and I hated it. And Ryan Poles, I think, right away has recognized that McCaskey has no fucking clue what he's doing, and he's like stepping away from him, which is fantastic. And again, that's another thing Chicago needs because Eberflus and Poles are like this instead of McCaskey and Pace being like this, which is great. Also, another thing, since Alex brought up the whole Patriots thing, I just want to point out there was a point. I don't know if you guys heard about this, where Belichick wanted to trade Brady and keep Jimmy Garoppolo as the long-term starter, and Robert Kraft had to step in and tell him no, and that's why they kept Brady, which is hysterical. Like, that whole situation in New England was like a ticking time bomb waiting to just go off because of all of the for lack of better words, the clashing egos between Brady, Belichick, and Kraft. And now that Brady's out of the equation, it's just kind of Belichick and Kraft. And that's why that team is starting to feel a little dysfunctional, I think, because there's no middleman for them to be like, well, it's kind of like when you have two parents that are ready to get a divorce, but they want to stay together for the kid. The kid's gone off to college. So now they're just kind of like stuck in the house with the younger child that nobody likes, but the fans like in Mac Jones. So they're trying to figure out what the dynamic is. And I just don't know how much longer it's going to last or what's going to come of it. I'm not saying Belichick's about to get fired or anything, but I just feel like Bill's going to hang it up a lot sooner than he probably should because of everything going on there.
So, yeah, and to continue on culture too, I mean, you want to have a culture where free agents and players want to be there. And, you know, I understand LA is flashy and it's great weather and a lot of, you know, business opportunities off the field. But if we had a terrible culture, you wouldn't be seeing all these guys coming in. And there's a reason why, like Von Miller, for example, you know, a couple weeks ago, he said after he got his Super Bowl ring, he talked about how even though he signed with the Bills and he's excited to be with them, he's very sad to leave the Rams because even though he was there for such a short period of time, he really enjoyed himself. And he's not the first guy to say that. And, you know, Robert Woods, who he was my favorite player for the longest time, is now gone. Like, I'm sure he didn't want to be traded either. And, you know, these guys want to be there. Now, certain things, you know, it's a business, so certain things get in the way, but there's a reason why guys like that say that they'll miss their time with the Rams. And I feel like if you have a culture like that, even if you don't have like all the best guys in the world, if you have a culture like that where people want to come in and work hard and buy into your system, then you can do a lot of great things with that. So
yeah. Listen, I'm going to buy into the shitting on the Bears thing. I don't think I've ever heard a player say they were sad to leave Chicago under the whole Pace Nagy thing. Like, you hear Akeem Hicks, he was talking like a month ago when he first signed with Tampa, saying like, this is a new opportunity and I'm excited because I haven't been able to play in an organization of this caliber or with players of this caliber. And you hear stuff like that all the time. You're not going to hear Allen Robinson say anything positive about Chicago. I haven't heard Kyle Fuller say anything positive about Chicago, James Daniels, anybody. Adrian Amos actively talks shit on Chicago. Like, like you said, it's a culture difference because you're looking at Chicago that's been such a dysfunctional team, and nobody's going to say that. But you look at the Rams, how great they've been. People want to stay there. I don't know. It's just sad, man. It makes me really sad being a Bears fan.
Because historically, the Bears have been like a blue blood, blue chip.
Yeah.
Historically, they are one of the great franchises of the NFL.
Right.
And like historically, Tampa is the worst. Like it's crazy. It's like if you were to go to just an average football fan 20 years ago, like even 20 years ago, and gone, hey, this great player left the Bears and he was excited to go to Tampa because it was a great organization and a chance for him to reset, that person would laugh at you.
Yeah.
It's crazy that
and
so I'm so glad to hear you have so much confidence in the Bears going forward.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that was the Pace and Nagy effect. That's all it was. Like, I'm fully like before the two of them got there, like we still didn't have the greatest situation at head coach or GM. We were rocking with it was the end of Lovey. Lovey was great. I'm not going to shit on Lovey, but like Mark or Phil
he did
Emery
go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. But like Phil Emery at GM and all that shit. You hear guys talk about it a decade after how much they love him at Chicago. Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Charles Tillman, Matt Forte, Julius Peppers. Never heard any of them say a negative thing about the Bears. Urlacher's a little bit different because he got in some hot water and the Bears disowned him for some comments. But like the other guys that aren't out here defending Kyle Rittenhouse, they don't say anything negative about Chicago because they loved it there. It was the Pace and Nagy effect. And now that we have new guys in that, again, are the anti-versions of Pace and Nagy, I'm really confident that Chicago's going to be fine. Again, it's going to be a slow burn, but I think they'll get back to it. But I think they're a perfect example of what not to do when we're talking about culture. That's how I'm going to tie this into it and excuse talking about them.
Just one quick thing, too, about the Bears is that Chicago's a big market. Now, I know the weather, during the second half of the football season's lousy, but like it's still a big market where they have very passionate sports fans. So if you could get a good culture within the organization, you could turn it around pretty quickly. I'm not saying this year, but in three years or so, you never know. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing for Chicago, and we'll stop talking about them because we do still have a good bit to talk about the Rams, even though we're almost an hour and a half into this. I think the big thing for us right now, if we just show that we're a different football team, we're going to lose more games than we did last year. But if we show that we're a different football team, it's a different vibe. More intensity, more effort, guys smiling on the sideline, communicating, high-fiving when things go right, instead of your quarterback on the bench like this with the coaches on the opposite side of the sideline ignoring them like they did for so many years with Trubisky and Fields. It's going to be different. If Fields shows improvement, he's the type of guy that gets people excited. He's the type of guy that players are going to want to come play with. You look at an offensive lineman, they're going to say, that's the type of guy I want to block for. You look at a receiver, that's the guy I want throwing me the football. You look at a defense, that's the guy I want to help out on the other side of the ball. You look at Eberflus, the culture he can build, that's the type of guy I want to play for. Like Chicago has fantastic potential, not this year, but long term. And I think we might see the start of that in 2023, the next free agency period, because Chicago has over $100 million in cap space, pending a Roquan Smith extension, obviously. But like, they're going to attract players just by the culture change and just by Fields being there. If he is that guy, like I'm very confident he will be. Chicago is about to be on the upswing. People won't listen to me, and I don't care what anybody says. Call it bias, call it delusion. I don't give a fuck. Pace and Nagy are gone. They were the problem, and now we're starting anew.
I will say, with what the Bengals did, turning it around in 1 year like that, I guess nothing should be surprising at this point. Because if they can turn it around like they did, I mean,
with a mediocre head coach at that.
Yeah.
Yes,
well, he is a Rams guy, though.
You know better than anybody else.
Tree.
You know better than anybody else. There's nobody that knows the organization like a Bears fan. So those are the people you should be listening to. I remember with the McVay hire, we had like two signings. We got Whitworth and we got Sammy Watkins. We traded for Sammy Watkins. I was like, oh, this is going to be a real team this year. We're going to win like 8-9 games.
Also signed Robert Woods too.
That's right. We signed Robert Woods. That's the signing I was thinking. But I was like, we're going to be a real team this year. And everybody was like, no, you're not. We won 4 games last. But exactly. So if anybody, you have completely convinced me. I was really off the Bears train, and you're really selling me. Like, It's always like the fantasy guys. Like if you have like a fantasy league and there's somebody that's like like a Panthers fan, they always know like the weird third receiver to put in the flex that's gonna blow up like once every 2 weeks. It's like the fans of the teams are the guys that know. So if anybody should be listening to anybody, they should be listening to you about your team. So I trust your opinion 100%.
And I like that that's your take on it, and not that this guy's fucking delusional and the Bears are going to suck like every other sports fan would take away from the rant I just went on.
How ridiculous. The parity in the NFL. Now, if you were like an Arkansas fan, like,
college football is way
different. Yeah, right. But exactly like you said, the parity in the NFL is way different than the NCAA. There is none in the NCAA. It's Alabama and everybody else. Whereas in the NFL, any given Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I will just say, you put the right people in the front office and the coaching staff, and then it becomes infectious very quickly. Mm-hmm. The Rams are an example of how quickly things turned around with McVay, going from Fisher to McVay, and then you see how quickly like the Bengals turn it around, getting a guy like Joe Burrow. I mean, he's the quarterback, but still.
Well, yeah, because you can't give the credit to Zach Taylor. You got to give it to somebody else.
Hey, I will always like Zach Taylor because he's part of McVay's coaching tree. So.
Yeah, but he's the ugly redheaded stepchild of the McVay coaching tree.
That's fair.
Like I could go on another rant about Zach Taylor because he runs that like very heavily Shanahan inspired wide zone type of offense that on paper to anybody else that runs it should heavily utilize a fullback. Zach Taylor swears against it. And I hate him for it.
I really don't like any of the McVay tree guys like as much as everybody else. I think it is crazy to.
I like Shanahan, and that's about it.
Shanahan isn't McVay tree. McVay is from Shanahan.
You're right. That's okay. Yeah.
So Shanahan, I think, is a top 5 coach in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
And nobody gives McVay trouble. I think that McVay is top 3, but I think that you can make the argument that Shanahan is better because
I think Shanahan's the best coach in football, personally.
He's the only coach that really gives McVay issues.
Yeah, I think they're the top 2.
Belichick.
Belichick too. Yeah.
Yeah, Belichick's in a weird spot right now. I want to see what he's able to do this year before I put him at number 1 again.
I will say though, with Belichick, he owned the Patriots owned the Rams in the Super Bowl, but the moment Tom Brady left, and then the Rams played the Patriots in 2020, Rams destroyed.
Yeah.
What?
24-3. We killed them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We whooped their ass, and like, I think that Brady had a lot to do with that. And like not having Brady there had a lot to do.
Well, we didn't score 24 points in the Super Bowl. It was Belichick dismantling Goff, but then it was McVay learning from the Super Bowl and just doing 2 tight ends, and we're just going to run it in your mouth. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But so I don't like LaFleur as much as everybody else.
I'm not a LaFleur guy either.
You have the best. That's the best job in the league. You have the best quarterback in the NFL. You have an unbelievable defense.
I blame him for the choking more than I blame Rodgers, if I'm being totally honest.
You have an awful. Exactly. I don't hate that take. You have an awful division. This division is way worse than it was with McCarthy. With McCarthy, the Bears were frisky. You had 2 playoff years. You had 2 playoff years from Stafford. You had the Vikings that 1 year with the Minneapolis Miracle.
You could have chose any word to describe the mid-2010s Bears, and you chose frisky?
They were frisky. They were a playoff every other year.
I mean, you're right. I just think frisky's a funny word to use. I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and you're not wrong. Like McCarthy, I mean, I think he's a worse coach than LaFleur, but like that's
of course he's above.
But like the point is, he still knew how to win ball games.
Like I think LaFleur isn't as good as everybody thinks. I think Kingsbury, obviously everybody.
Oh, Cliff sucks.
I think
Cliff is awful.
Terrible. He's going to get fired after this.
Yes. I was talking to the Cardinals fans, and they were praying they completely – yeah, they want them to completely clean house.
Really? You guys have that take?
Yeah.
I think Cliff Kingsbury is an awful coach.
He's
awful, what he does in the second half.
Yeah, exactly. The second half choking is all him. It's not Kyler. It's all him.
Now Kyler needs stuff. He's got to work on some things, but
Yeah.
I agree that it is Cliff with the choking. I think you guys are taking too much blame away from Kyler. And
I like Kyler. I'm a big Kyler guy.
I think he's top 10. I think he's top 10 over Dak. I think he's top 10 over Kirk. I think he's top 10 over a lot of guys. There are a lot of guys that I skip out to put Kyler in top 10. There's nobody that scares me quite like Lamar, Kyler, Russ, like where you're really a problem. Like where I'm like scared. I was so terrified all year to play the Ravens in Baltimore, and then Lamar was injured, so we beat him. But it was still a close game. We would have lost that game with Lamar. There are like, if you scare me as a quarterback, I think you're a top 10 quarterback. Kyler scares the crap out of me, but I do think there is something to say about how hot he starts and how hot Cliff starts. I know that that's Cliff's trend, and he's always started hot and then always fallen off. But Kyler is a smaller guy. He is by far the smallest quarterback in the NFL. And as the year goes, he gets hit and he gets hit and he gets hit and he gets hit. And I'm telling you, by the end of the year, he is worn down. He had like 2 rushing attempts against the Rams in the wild card game.
Oh, I was there too.
I get where you're coming from, and I definitely agree to a certain extent. I just feel like if it was somebody other than Cliff at head coach, we'd see a completely different Kyler. Like, yeah, he's still going to be worn down. I'm not saying he's going to be like hot all the way through the season, but the fall off is going to be far less substantial. Like, you're going to see a little bit of a decline because, yeah, he is small and he's going to take a beating no matter what. But you're not going to go from like MVP candidate Kyler like we saw last year to one of the worst performances we've seen out of a quarterback in the playoffs in God knows how long consistently. I just don't think that'll be the case once Cliff's gone.
Yeah, maybe. You could tell me on that. I mean, they beat the Cowboys late in the year. And you could tell me that was I think it was the Cliff game that he had COVID.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of fuel to the fire right there.
It's a prove-it year for him.
Sure. And I don't think he's going to prove jack shit. I think the Cardinals are going to be a bad football team this year. I have the Cardinals winning like 7, 8 games. I really don't have a lot of confidence in them.
I say 8, maybe 9 at most.
9 is being generous, I think.
The NFC West is a 2-team divisional race this year. I
mean, you guys are way higher on Trey Lance than I am.
Even if Trey's not that great, we saw what Shanahan did with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, the Niners are going to be competitive no matter what. The rest of that team is just too good.
Throws, you're underrating Jimmy G.
Trey can hit throws too. He just needs to piece it together. I know he looked really, really rough last year, and I get it. But I think him knowing that he's the starting quarterback now, working under Shanahan with the ones all off season, getting the playbook, getting to start from week 1 onward, it's going to be a different Trey Lance. I don't think he's going to be perfect. I don't think he's going to be fantastic. But I think he can do just as good as Jimmy G did.
Yeah, I'm concerned.
I get the concerns. I'm a little. I will say I am high on Trey Lance. I'm just high on that draft class as a whole at quarterback. Like the top 4 guys, so pretty much the first rounders minus Mac Jones, I'm super high on. But like I definitely get the concerns with Trey. He's the one I'm the least confident in. I'll say that.
I will say, I don't know if you guys look at the comments section of any of my TikTok posts, but I have 49er fans in there talking shit every day. And I tell them, look, it comes down to Trey Lance. I mean, there's so much unknown about Trey Lance. If he's above average, yeah, you guys will be really good. If he sucks, then you guys may not be that good. But I will say it comes down to that. And the reason why I put the 49ers there is they just always play the Rams really tough, no matter what. I mean, no matter how bad their team is, they're like our kryptonite, except for in the NFC Championship game. So,
yeah, I don't know. I'm basically a closeted 49ers fan because of how much I love Kyle Shanahan. Like, Kyle Shanahan is the father, Kyle Juszczyk is the son, and I will say Fred Warner's the Holy Spirit. Like, George Kittle is the Holy Spirit, because everything Kyle Shanahan does with his offense, I call it football porn, because it is beautiful. I love it so much. Being a fullback enjoyer and someone who just loves a good run game, everything Kyle Shanahan does is like everything I want to see every head coach do at all times. And I'm always going to be high on the Niners, no matter who their quarterback is.
Well, I will say – sorry, go ahead.
I'm with you. I think that the Niners are a problem. They always scare the shit out of me every year. I can't stand playing them. And I'm with you. My just thing is, and this will be obviously LA Rams super fan. You could finish after me. I'm not going to call you by your name. And then we'll move to the next thing. But like with scheduling, everybody agrees. I think that the Rams have the hardest schedule in the NFL. The Rams schedule is impossible this year. The 49ers are for sure top 5. And if you look at their schedule, it's a lot of shootouts. And I like the 49ers, and the 49ers are a problem. And look, you're going to get 2 wins against the Rams. We play our division plays the NFC South this year, so that's 3 wins right there. You're going to beat the Saints, you're going to beat the Panthers, and you're going to beat the Falcons. Right? So right there, 5 wins that the 49ers have. You're going to beat the Seahawks twice as well. So that's 7 wins right there. So they'll be nice. They'll be exciting. But, like, I don't know how you're going to get into those shootouts if Trey Lance he doesn't even have to be as raw as he was last year, but you are going to lose to the Chiefs in Kansas City if they score over 30 points. I don't know how you're going to keep up with that. You have no corners. The 49ers corners are a mess. And so like I love the way they run the ball, and you got Trent Williams in motion, and it's super sick. It's like so awesome to watch. And Trey Lance, he should be one of the top quarterbacks for fantasy because he's going to rush all the time. But I don't know how you're not going to out physical everybody like you did the Super Bowl year where you just killed the Packers. You're not going to be able to do that against the AFC West because the AFC West can run the ball too. Like the worst team in the AFC West has Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. What are you going to do when they put up 30 points?
That's the worst team in the AFC West?
I say the Broncos are
I'm also very anti-Broncos.
I like the Broncos in the Super Bowl.
With what receiver core?
With Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy is a glorified Cole Beasley. He's not good. He's not good. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shit on your parade like that, but I am not a Jerry Jeudy believer.
I have no problem with anybody shitting on my takes because I'm going to shit on takes that I disagree with. So I honestly, I respect you a lot more than going, well, I disagree. But I don't like the Chargers in that division. I'm going to change my answer. I like the Raiders better than the Chargers. I'm really low on the Chargers this year. Really, really low. I don't like, but my thing with the Broncos, I have the strong opinion that we went over and everybody kind of agreed with is I think that Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think he really is real. Like you said, you don't like to throw around the word underrated. He's still underrated. That team
he is slowly becoming underappreciated is how I'd put it. I feel like people are forgetting what he's capable of.
The Seahawks teams that he's had for the last 4 or 5 years have been the worst offensive line perennially in the NFL. That defense has been a mess. Like everybody remembers the Legion of Boom. The Legion of Boom was 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
It's been a while now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are high on DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf fell in the draft. He was not a route runner. He was just a body. And Tyler Lockett was a 3rd-round gadget guy. Everybody said he would be maybe Tavon Austin. Everybody's high on these receivers. Like, they're God. I think a lot of that is Russell Wilson. So if you feel that Jerry Jeudy ain't shit, that's cool. I might agree with you, but I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be at least Tyler Lockett, which everybody seems to love Tyler Lockett. Like,
I don't know. I think
we'll see.
The big thing, we'll see. I'm not going to get into a whole a Broncos receiver debate here because I feel very strongly about their receiver core. So we're an hour and a half into this, and we haven't even brought up the fact that a draft happened and they made selections, and there are players on this team that got added from college.
Yep.
So how did you guys feel about the draft? I know as Rams fans, it's kind of a foreign subject, but how did you feel about the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks they made?
I think we addressed pieces where we needed depth in the secondary. We need another running back because Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson are good running backs, but they get hurt a lot. So we needed to bring in and I don't trust Jake Funk. So we needed to bring in another guy.
The fundamental white boy? You don't trust the fundamental white boy?
I met his family. They're very nice.
I had a friend who was like a Jake Funk stan, so he preached the gospel to me for years, or for like 2 years. So I kind of have a little Funk believer in me. Plus, I'm from Maryland, so.
I mean, I think there was look, he hasn't played much, so we'll see. I hope it works out, but I think there's a reason why the Rams traded for Sony Michel last training camp when Cam Akers, because I just don't think he was ready to kind of step in on a larger role. But we got this guy at running back, Kyron Williams, out of Notre Dame, who, is a depth add. And I think it's just because, like, Akers is still coming off an Achilles tear. Now, all the credit in the world to him to come back for Week 18 in the playoffs as well. But, he's still going to take some time to get his footing back. Darrell Henderson's been a little injury prone, so we added some depth at running back. We needed to add depth at the offensive line, so we got another guy out of Wisconsin, Logan Bruss. He could very well step in and make an impact right away. And, made some much-needed depth picks at the secondary as well. So, obviously we didn't have any sexy picks, but knowing the Rams and knowing how they're really good at finding these guys in the late rounds, I think we could develop these guys into some very good contributing players. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
I feel very strongly how it was portrayed. I get very excited so the draft is probably my favorite day of the football year. I love the videos. Because it's the one day a year where everybody's happy. Obviously, kickoff is an amazing day, but like people lose on week one. I've lost in week one where I feel shitty. The draft, nobody feels shitty. That's
not true.
Well, that's true.
That's not Patriots fans this year. They feel shitty.
Patriots fans this year, Jaguars fans this year.
That's right. And every year there's like a team that shits on their pick, and then their pick is J.J. Watt. I remember
Listen, hold on real quick, not to cut you off, but I just want to put out there, I will die on the hill that Cole Strange is either going to be one of the biggest draft busts in Patriots history, or he's going to be a perennial all-pro. There is no in-between with that kid. It's going to be one or the other. Like, I know McVay was laughing at him when Belichick drafted him, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to be one extreme or the other, just because of the backlash he's gotten.
Okay, the only reason why McVay was laughing is because that was one of the guys that they were targeting in the third round.
Yeah.
So I think him and McVay and Snead were just kind of shocked that he went in the first round because they thought, there's a possibility he could, come to us in the third round.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a disrespecting.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, that's just kind of been the vibe of it. I understand why he was laughing. Like, when I was doing my mock drafts for Chicago, Cole Strange was somebody that was crossing my mind at the end of the second, beginning of the third round. I absolutely get where he was coming from. But I'm just saying, because of that video and because of the public outlash that automatically he's a bust, it was a bad pick. Because he's playing under Belichick, he's either going to be a perennial all-pro in the next, like, Shaq Mason but on steroids, or he's going to suck. There will be a no in-between. There won't be, he's an okay starter. It's one extreme or the other. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, so I love draft day. I watch all 3 days. Like, I love watching the draft. It's like one of my favorite days of television ever. I love the draft. Obviously, it's a lot less exciting day one, and especially day 2 this year. We had 1 pick late.
Yeah, right? like towards the end.
Yeah, for Bruss. But I agree completely that we just got, like, we kind of got every position that I was like, yep, we need this. Yep, we need that. Yep, we need this. Yep, we need that. And something we did last year. Now, he was a rookie, so he didn't do too much, and he didn't even play that much. But this guy, Robert Rochelle, he's number 31 for us. He was a pick for us last year in like the 4th or 5th round. I can't quite remember. Robert Rochelle is like a physical freak. He's as tall as Jalen Ramsey. He's like the same size as Jalen Ramsey. And he just fell because he went to a smaller school and technique and everything like that. Things that I think that the Rams, especially our secondary coaches, feel like we can coach. And the 2 guys we picked for the secondary this year, specifically Jacoby Durant, like, are physical specimens that I love. So a couple years ago, we had this crazy corner group in 2020, the Staley year, where we had the number 1 defense, where our 4th best corner was Troy Hill, who scored 3 defensive touchdowns and was a problem, like a legitimate, really, really good defensive corner for us. I feel like I'm so excited that, like, because I felt that was probably our biggest hole because the Darius Williams departure that I obviously wanted, but like So I loved our draft, but like you said, we spent so much time talking about other stuff and not the Rams and the Rams on this call. We don't really need to talk about the draft because we don't draft too much. That's
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. You know, for the last 4 years, since 2018 is when we started kind of going all in. You know, to the offseason before the 2018 season, we brought in, you know, Brandon Cooks, Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, all these guys. And then obviously in 2019, midway through the season, you trade two first-round picks and you get Jalen Ramsey. And all my buddies who aren't Rams fans, they're like, what are the Rams doing? And I'm like, just wait. I'm the type of guy that would rather trade first-round picks to bring in proven veteran stars. I make videos about it all the time. I respond on comments about it all the time. I'm like, you know, I'm not as high on the draft as you guys are. Now, I think it's important. You know, you still got to make good picks in those rounds. But I think when you have a team like who's already at a high quality level like the Rams are, I would rather just try to acquire or try to sign proven veterans first. I think that, in my opinion, the teams that should focus more on the draft are the teams that are trying to rebuild, you know, or maybe, you know, are trying to find one or two more pieces for on the cheap. But obviously it's important. I'm not discrediting the draft, but maybe I just don't focus on it as much as you guys do. But I'm all about acquiring veterans.
I don't hate that take. I don't hate that, especially as a Rams fan. And I just went over the thing where I was like, I'm so happy to be a Rams fan because we're always making moves. But we are very spoiled as Rams fans because a lot of our late picks have hit. Yeah, and there are a lot of teams that have firsts that don't hit. So it's very easy for us to go, Travis Etienne tore his ACL, hasn't played a game for you, and Kayvon Chason is a bust. And that's what we traded for Jalen Ramsey, and Jalen Ramsey has been awesome.
Right.
But it very equally, could it be a situation where, you know, they get Justin Jefferson and some other guy
that's true.
In the
Jamar
late 20s,
Chase,
and
Jalen
then we
Waddle,
look like
like
idiots.
that.
We look like idiots because we traded for an aging Von Miller or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to get into hypotheticals, but we've been very spoiled because a lot of those have hit. And so I disagree with you a bit there because, like, and that's maybe why I have the disagreement with you on you think that our window is like the next 3 years and my window is this year. Because I don't think we're going to keep hitting. I just feel like we've lost too many. Brad Holmes, the now GM of the Lions.
In Detroit.
It's his second year in a row where I'm looking at that draft and I'm like, this is a great team.
They're building something interesting in Detroit.
It scares me so much as a Bears fan, dude. I'm more scared of the Lions than any team right now with the projections from the Bears. Oh, I love Dan Campbell.
Talk about
MCDC.
I talk about culture. We'll go back. I'll just say one thing on the culture, and we can go back to the draft. But like Dan Campbell, you bring in a guy like that who's willing to take risks. I mean, they almost beat the Rams by doing all these like onside kicks in the second quarter and stuff like that.
Campbell just doesn't give a fuck, dude. He throws all caution to the wind.
He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's why I already believe Dan Campbell's a top 10, maybe even has an argument for a top 5 head coach, just because of what he can pull out of his players.
He could be. I don't know about right now.
Listen,
he could be.
Maybe I'm just getting too giddy on the projection. Maybe that's what it is. I'm getting a little too giddy with the projection. But you look at him. He's a head coach that is always going to get 150, 200% out of his players because he gives them 300, 400% every single game. There's not a lot of guys in the NFL or in NFL history that are like that can do that. And we've seen it pay dividends. The Lions weren't super impressive last year, but they weren't the 0-17 team we all thought they were on paper. They won football games they shouldn't have won.
I was really happy to see him beat the Cardinals when we were fighting for that division crown with the Cardinals.
So. I will say hindsight's already hit me. Calling him a top 5 head coach is fucking ridiculous. But borderline top 10, and I can see the projection for him going up.
I just think he's building an interesting culture, and I'm very intrigued to see what the Lions are like, 2 or 3 years from now. Yeah. But anyway, going back to the draft, it's like, Yeah, I mean, look, the Rams have hit a lot recently. You had Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round. Tyler Higbee, I think, was a 3rd or 4th rounder as well. Now, he's like middle of the road, but I think he's underrated. You have Ernest Jones, which I think a lot more people are going to realize who he is this season. You know, guys like that, Cam Akers, 2nd rounder. So you got all these guys that go past the 1st round who are big contributors. Darius Williams, I think, was undrafted.
Not to us, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Undrafted to the Ravens, and we picked him up. Yeah.
You're right. I think he wasn't part of the Ramsey trade, but he was part of the Marcus Peters trade.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
I forgot Marcus Peters played for the Rams. God damn, that's been a lifetime ago.
A year and a half. Yeah.
I was so angry. I loved Marcus Peters, and I was so angry when he took the shots at Ramsey on I can't remember what podcast it was, but he went on and he was like, I don't know why you traded for Ramsey. You had that with me. And I just had the flashbacks of the same game in the Super Bowl of him just completely missing the ball as he jumped to get the interception with Michael Thomas taking it back for the touchdown for them to win that game. That was our first loss of that season. I will always see that in my head, and I will never see that with Ramsey costing us a game because, look, he's gotten burned. He got burned twice in the playoffs this year. It was not his best postseason, but I love him. My parents met at FSU, so I am a big FSU guy. So I was at the national championship that he won against Auburn. So I love Jalen Ramsey. I love Jalen.
I was there too because my parents went to Florida State.
That's crazy.
They moved to LA in the mid 70s after they graduated from Florida State. So that's how I ended up. That's how I grew up in California. But yeah,
that's crazy. That's
so y'all are like the same person over here.
Yeah, but every game that he says he's at, I'm like, I was there too.
when I went, I was at that Auburn FSU because it was right there in my backyard. So But that's the connection. It's because of my parents went there.
That's dope. So I was so mad at that. Yeah, Marcus Peters ramp. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys are good on the draft. I'm for sure good on talking about the draft.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I don't know how you guys feel about Kyren Williams, but I'm not a huge fan of his, and I feel like that's a slightly controversial take because a lot of people are high on Kyren Williams from what I know. I just don't trust his size.
I'm with you on the size, and I have really seen Rams fans be like, he's the second coming of Jesus.
Yeah, no, he's not.
I mean, I'm not going that far, but I will say he's a depth ad. He's a depth.
Yeah, I mean, he's a third down back. That's what he is. He's a third down back. He's got got good traits, but he's not super athletic, and he's really small. Like he's not a bell cow. He's not a number one back. He's a third down scat back.
Rams loves Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't understand.
About him every day. It's like
ridiculous.
So I mean, we got Akers, we got Darrell Henderson, both kind of 1A, 1B. They'll split carries. They'll use the hot hand. Whoever's playing better. That's what I think, at least.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I feel like Kyren's there to just kind of in the event one of them gets hurt, which wouldn't surprise me because Darrell Henderson has never played a full season. So it's that's what I think. That's why I think we got him. But we'll see. We'll see how he does.
Yeah,
like I don't have a problem with the pick.
No, I don't either.
And I like depth for the running back room because then we've got 4 guys, right? And I am not low on Jake Funk. I like Jake Funk. He's great on special teams, which I think is underrated. It's a lot of the times with Rams. Like with the Rams, is they have guys on special teams for 2 years, and then they pop, and then the next year is their contract year, and they walk and they sign for $1 billion. And that's how it's been historically. And so any guy that's like specifically, I'm like, that was a nice tackle, Jake Funk. That was a nice way to shed your block on that special teams play. Like, oh, that was a nice, like you hit it at the 1, Robert Rochelle. Like that, I'm like, oh, this guy is going to be a real contributor in a couple years. So I like Jake Funk. Obviously, I love Akers, FSU guy. Obviously, I love him coming back from the Achilles. And something that's underrated, a lot of people shit on Cam Akers for when he came back. They're like, look, he came back. He wasn't very good. He was killing the Cardinals in that game. He was and okay, He didn't play well against the number 1 run defense in Tampa, the number 2 run defense in San Francisco, and the number 1 run defense in the playoffs going into the playoffs in the Bengals. I have no problem with Cam Akers not playing great against those teams when he played a middle-of-the-road run defense against the Cardinals, and he kind of crushed them.
Yeah.
I think you got to give Cam Akers the benefit of the doubt. He tore his Achilles last July, like a week before training camp started, and he worked his ass off. You know, he would post all these videos of him getting back in shape. And, you know, they started talking about like week 7. Oh, maybe he'll be ready for the playoffs. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Achilles is a very bad, like it's worse than an ACL tear. And he comes in, you know, gets a couple carries week 18. And I think you got to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was a little shaky throughout most of the playoffs. But you got to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was able to get back so quickly. Now you give him a full offseason to get his bearings back. He could look closer to the second half of 2020 come this season if he stays healthy.
What I think with Cam is obviously everybody shits on the fumbles. He hadn't played football in a year. Of course, you're going to fumble it, especially against that defense. I'm telling you, underrate that it was like everybody's like, oh, he's so bad in the Tampa game. He was so bad in the 49ers game. He wasn't good in the Super Bowl. I'm telling you, these are the 3 best run defenses in the NFL at the time. Like,
and he just came off an Achilles tear.
An Achilles tear. But like I'm looking at, like, he dropped a ball that would have been a touchdown in the Arizona Cardinals game. And like he was running ahead of everybody. And I was like, okay, he's back. Like, of course he didn't catch it. He's off an Achilles tear, but he's back. So I'm actually a lot less concerned than everybody else. I kind of feel like he was close to 100% when he was playing. I know that a lot of people don't have that take, but that's just my take.
I mean, he was bad in the Tampa game. He fumbled the ball on the 1-yard line. You know, we score that touchdown there. We don't have to sweat it out at the end. I mean, there's a whole lot of other reasons why we start, you know, the bad snap to Stafford, but, you know, I'm just saying.
You're absolutely right, and that was the first one, so everybody remembers it. The last one also, because that was the fumble that let them score to tie. We could have put the game away there. So 100%, they were in that game because of Cam Akers. There's no other way to say it. And he didn't run well that game. He had like 8 rushes for 10 yards. It was something nuts, right? Like, and the play where he almost scored, where he fumbled it, it was a catch. It was like a screen. So, like, and he got like 15 yards on that play, but that wasn't a run. Again, but like, I'm not going to hold that against him. He hadn't played football. Like, I'm just saying that if I'm looking towards the future, because that game is over. Cooper Kupp caught the deep ball on the love of the game.
Matt Gay makes the game winner.
Yeah, a lot of people sleep on it. Maybe it's because I was there. I was there for that game. That is my favorite play of all time. I know everybody loves the Donald play to win the Super Bowl. I know everybody loves the Cooper Kupp no-look pass. I know everybody loves the one to win against San Francisco with Aaron Donald, with the interception, the Traven Howard interception. I know a lot of people love a lot of other plays. Probably my favorite play ever is probably that Cooper Kupp catch.
I mean, I rewatched it the other day because it was on NFL Network on repeat, and I will just say that this last year's playoffs, I mean, we were just clutch at all the right times. Almost blew it a few times, but like just kind of came in clutch, you know, time and time again. And
it's beautiful what Matt Stafford can do when there's actual talent around him. Something I had preached to people for years as a Bears fan, watching him in Detroit at least twice a year, if not more. I started doing the whole like analysis bullshit that I do on TikTok now, like recently. So before then it was more casual, but even then, just watching him every once in a while, you could tell Stafford was something special. He just needed function around him. He needed a structure around him. And going to LA, I mean, it was literally a match made in heaven. I don't think, other than I guess Brady going to Tampa, there hasn't been a better fit for a quarterback leaving and going to a new system.
And I mean, there's a lot of Lions fans who kind of adopted the Rams a little bit because of Stafford. They're happy to see him do well. And anytime I see a Lions fan or I talk to a Lions fan, they're always like, oh yeah, we knew Stafford was that guy. He just needed a good team around him and a good culture. But we always knew, because, I mean, he is one of the toughest dudes. Last year through the playoffs, he had his elbow issue that we know is still lingering. I'm not worried about it. But anyway.
I was about to ask you guys that, actually. I'm glad you brought it up about the elbow. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. We'll get into it in a second. I'll just say he was dealing with that for a lot of last year. he also had back problems and ankle problems all at the same time and still managed to get through and win the Super Bowl. And so he has a high pain tolerance. And yeah, this is a good segue into that elbow situation. When I first saw the notification pop up where they say abnormal elbow issue, more so what, MLB pitchers deal with, at first I got nervous. I mean, it's only natural that any fan would think of the worst possible. And hold on, can you guys hear me? My headphones just died.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. It's only natural to think of the worst possible situation, but I will say, that he was dealing with that last year too, and he got an injection like a month after the Super Bowl, and yeah, it's still lingering, but I went to training camp last Saturday and he was throwing dimes. Now I understand that there was no pressure on him. There was no pass rush on him. And it's just practice. And really training camp is a glorified practice, but he was throwing it and he was, making accurate passes right in the hands of the receivers. And I just know he's that type of player that will play through that. And I see that the Rams have a good plan for him. They're basically, he's on like a load management right now. So he, once or twice a week, he'll get some reps in, and then he'll take a few days off. And then obviously when training camp's done and they got to start preparing for the Bills and then their opponents after that, they'll need to practice more. But for right now, he is on like a rep count. And I just, knowing how tough he is and how well he's been throwing the ball when we have seen him, I think he'll be just fine, ready to go. But obviously, the media as it is likes to make it seem like it's – I'm not saying there isn't anything there. He has elbow discomfort. I just think that they're making it a bigger deal than they probably should.
Well, it's that time of year. They're going to do that with anything that comes out.
Right.
I haven't bought into the whole Stafford thing too hard, if I'm being totally honest. And I haven't even followed it. I just know that it's Stafford. I'm not worried about him being hurt. Not to change the subject, but just because we were talking about his toughness, I do want to bring up, in my opinion, what is his career-defining drive when I think it was against the Browns, I want to say. He completely dislocated his shoulder, popped it back into place, went back out, finished the drive, drove them down the field. They kicked the field goal to win the game. That's the toughest thing I think anyone has ever done in an NFL game. He completely dislocated his shoulder. It was just fuck it. I'm staying in. We're winning this ball game. I'm doing it. This is me. That's incredible. I love Stafford. I've always had a ton of respect for Stafford, as a Bears fan, like I said, watching him for so many years. And he's one of those guys that I was just really glad to see get a ring. And yeah, the whole elbow thing, I'm personally not too worried about it. I'm in the same boat as you where, there's concern, but
I just think he dealt with worse throughout the season. Like I said, he had that elbow discomfort, but he was also dealing with ankle and back issues most of the second half of the season. I mean, you look at this tweet that Diana Rossini tweeted November 28th, right before we played the Packers. They said, and this was right after a bye week. They're like, Stafford, who's been dealing with chronic back pain, ankle pain, and elbow discomfort, will play today. And yeah, we lost that game, but that's when he started making connections with Odell. And it was right after that game that we started turning things around. And so, and he's actually said in interviews since that article came out, that he said, oh yeah, it's just a little sore. I'll be okay, to that extent. And I also want to point out that about 2 hours before all those articles and tweets started coming out, he threw a 50-yard pass to Tutu Atwell in practice.
Damn.
And I'm not saying that he didn't feel discomfort there. I'm sure he did. But that, and again, it's training camp. There was no one coming at him trying to tackle him, but it was still a good-looking pass.
Tutu was running to catch it, though. He fell because he had to dive to catch it, too.
Right.
It wasn't a Tua underthrow of Tyreek.
Right.
It wasn't it was. My take is exactly yours. We can move on to the next topic. The only thing I want to say, I love Stafford. I love him on the Rams. It is a shame he never played for MCDC in Detroit.
No,
Yeah.
that would be
It's
interesting to
a
see.
Oh my
shame.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, literally, you just I know you guys love Goff, but you pluck Goff out and put Stafford on this team right now. They're legit playoff contenders in the NFC.
I like Goff.
Yeah.
I like Goff. I like Goff better for that team than I like Stafford.
So
Uh,
I like Goff, but the writing was on the wall towards the end of 2020 that if we're going to win a Super Bowl, it's not going to be with Goff. Again, I appreciate everything he's done for the Rams, but it was time to move on. I want to see him do well in Detroit. I don't have anything against him, but I think we saw what happened last year, that we were just a quarterback away, and it was pretty obvious. So anyway,
I love Goff.
Yeah.
I will always love Goff. That's not where I'm at. I'm always like, I obviously they hated each other. I remember seeing that article that McVay and Goff need marriage counseling. Like, and then he was traded like a week later. And this is funny. I did not have the same reaction as most Rams fans when I got the ESPN notification that we had.
I was thrilled.
I was upset, not because of Goff, because I knew he was on the way out. I really wanted Watson. And oh boy, am I glad that in the middle of that shit show. Right?
No, but
personality-wise, you could not have two more different human beings. It's incredible.
Yeah. So I'm obvious. This was before anything came out.
Well,
Right.
it started to creep up a little bit, not to the level that it is now, but we started hearing, because I had buddies who were like, "Oh, the Rams should have traded for Watson instead," and I was like, I don't know. There's some very sketchy shit going on.
Right.
It was still it was like the very beginning of it, but I was like, even if it's just something small, I didn't want anything to do with it, because that you bring in one guy who has baggage, it can mess up everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I remember the initial reports, and half of Twitter was like, "Oh, this is an attack on his character. This is the Texans."
90% of Twitter is still on that fucking shit, even though there's 30 women now.
Not force his way out, trying to force him in. And I was like, there's no way, right? And then the New York Times article came out 2 months ago. 66 different masseuses. Oh my gosh.
Listen, when that shit first of all, I want to point out, I'm a huge advocate for women in sports, right? I firmly believe that sports are for everybody. Yeah. Everybody deserves a chance. When you see women oh my God, I suck because I suck at names, but the Bears just promoted somebody a couple months ago and hired the Raiders. It's their VP. The Broncos have a woman that's very high up. And like I said, I suck because I'm forgetting names, but I love women in sports. So I'm also someone that's very vocal and the NFL needs to crack down on these fucking sickos. Yeah. I wanted Big Ben thrown out of the league. I hate Kareem Hunt. I hate Joe Mixon. Robert Kraft is a piece of shit, disgusting human being.
They all need to be.
Yeah, the NFL needs to do more. Yeah. But I can remember when the Watson reports first came out, I was dragged by my friends, by people I played video games with online, by my TikTok following, by Twitter, because I was like, Watson needs to be dealt with now. He needs to be thrown out of the league. But it's a smear campaign. It's a smear campaign. I hate it. I hate it. I hate that people sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I hate that everyone's first assumption when an athlete does something to that magnitude is, oh, they want money. Oh, they're out to get him. Alex said with the Texans, that it was a smear campaign to keep him in Houston. I hate that. I hate that as sports fans, the majority of the fan base of any given sport, their first reaction is always anti-woman, pro-athlete, just because there's been 4 or 5 situations that people can name where a woman actually did lie. And it was never to a massive extent. We're talking high school kids. There's never been an NFL player. There's never been an NBA. Good Lord, I can't talk. NBA, MLB. There's never been women that lie about those guys. It's always true. Ben Roethlisberger fucking raped a woman and is going to be in the NFL Hall of Fame. At the end of the day, that's disgusting to me. So I didn't need to go on a full rant like that.
I agree with you, and that's why, I agree with everything you're saying. And so when people say, "Oh, you guys should have traded for Deshaun Watson," again, we hadn't heard much at the time, but we heard some rumblings, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with that, because this is just going to get a whole lot worse, and I don't want him dragging the Rams down with him either. So, yeah, because it was always it was between Stafford and Watson. Who are the Rams going to trade for? once we got eliminated. So,
so just to move on real quick, when I do these, normally what happens towards the end is we just kind of like run through the roster, run through each position and be like, well, they're good here, they're not good here, blah, blah, blah. We've pretty much already done that just by talking. I feel like we've hit on everything apart from, I don't know, maybe like a couple of the offensive linemen and whoever is rushing the passer opposite Leonard Floyd. So unless you have some like
Hollins had 3 sacks against the Bears before he went down.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, you did bring that up. So yeah, unless you have some super like profound take on any of these offensive linemen not named Joe Noteboom, who we already talked about, or Logan Bruss, I think we're pretty much wrapped up.
I love our offensive line, and what's in face? We have a punting situation. I have no idea who's going to be our punter. We will see who our punter is.
Oh yeah, you guys brought in Dicker the kicker, didn't you?
We did.
Cam Dicker.
Yes, we've had the same punter for 30 years, so I have no idea who our punter is going to be.
We'll see.
It's not going to be Johnny Hecker, obviously. It's also not going to be Corey Borjaquez.
It's either going to be Riley Dixon or Dicker the kicker.
So it will be one of those two guys. I love our offensive line. I'm good. Otherwise, I do feel like we talked about every position.
I'm wrong. We didn't talk about the safeties. Is there anything profound you want to say about the safeties?
Let me take this real quick.
Okay,
Jordan
go for
Fuller
it.
is sick, but he had a better year his rookie year than he did last year. And he was a captain last year, so I feel he had more responsibility. And I think he took a step back maybe because of that. I don't know. I hate Taylor Rapp. Now that Troy Reeder is gone, Taylor Rapp is my least favorite player on the Rams. When he walks next year, like Troy Reeder did last year, I will be the happiest person. My girlfriend knows it. All my friends know it. My whole circle knows I hate Taylor Rapp and I hate Troy Reeder. Bye-bye, Troy Reeder. Now it's just Taylor Rapp. He had a good year his rookie year, and he lost us the 49ers game.
I remember.
And since then, he has been the weak link on our defense forever.
Even him and Ramsey kind of butted heads a little bit at times.
Yes, him and Jalen. Jalen's obviously my favorite player on the defense, not named Aaron Donald. And I kind of feel like Donald gets all the love, so maybe I don't give as much love. So maybe I like Jalen better. So I really don't like him because of that. Taylor Rapp, not my guy. He gets a lot of picks. Cool. And then Nick Scott, love Nick Scott.
Yeah, he's great.
That's my guy. I love Nick Scott. That's my guy.
I could be wrong, but wasn't he undrafted as well?
Oh, I have no idea.
He was either undrafted or like a 6th or 7th round pick. He was late.
I'm pretty sure he was undrafted as well.
Yeah.
And he's a big
man.
What's that? Oh,
Nick Scott is the man. I love Nick Scott.
He really took a big step forward.
7th round of the 19 draft.
Okay, 7th round. Close enough.
Basically a UDFA.
Close enough. Yeah.
He's a UDFA that got a little bit extra money.
3 picks from being undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
So shout out Nick Scott. Love that guy.
Yeah. I think the things that will hold the Rams back is health. I mean, we always, us Rams fans, we talk about running it back, and I'm realistic in saying that is very hard to do. We all know that. The odds aren't in our favor. I do think we're capable of running it back if we can stay healthy. And obviously we have a tough schedule, but I think if we can go 12-5, that'll be good enough to win our division.
I think we'll go like 10-7, to be honest. I would like to think we're going to go 12-5. And when I look at our schedule, I think we're going 13-4. Like I think we lose at Green Bay. I think we lose at Kansas City. I think that we lose another AFC West game, but I expect us to split 2-2 with the AFC West. And then we're going to kill the NFC South. I think we're going to kill the Buccaneers. We kill them every year. I mean, with Goff, we beat them. So and then we killed them 2 years in a row, except, Cam Akers almost fumbled the game away and everything fell apart. But we were killing them, obviously.
Yeah.
So I think we match up very well with the Buccaneers. So when I look at the schedule, I think 13-4, but things happen that you don't know about. We might lose to the freaking Saints in New Orleans.
I think that could be a game we lose because I actually went to the not the NFC Championship game, but earlier in the year when we played when we had our first loss of the season, 2018. I made a whole weekend out of it. I was like, oh, this is a good time to go to New Orleans. And that's a tough place for any road team to play, because that's like a SEC college environment.
Yeah.
So I think that could be, even though I think we're a better team than the Saints, I think that's a game that we could end up losing.
But they could be sick this year. If you told me like the teams in the NFL that like could be good, like that could be like really good, because every year that half the playoff teams don't make the playoffs and it's a new half. Like the Saints could totally be like a hot wild card team that are sick and like could be like the Colts last year late in the year, but if they made the playoffs, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like nobody wants to play them. If Jameis is sick, they could be awesome. So like exactly. So I expect us to kind of go like 10-7. It's a really tough schedule. The thing is I think if we make it into the playoffs, which I expect us to, as long as we make it into the playoffs, I think we can beat anybody in the NFC. And if you make it to the Super Bowl, you have a 50-50 shot to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right at the end of the day. Now, if we're playing, there are situations like Denver, Seattle, where it's just one team is just significantly better than the other, and they line up like it's such a bad matchup. Like we could get
like when we play the Falcons or the Panthers, for example.
We could get an AFC team in the Super Bowl if we made it. That it's just we line up, they're just a significantly better team, and then it's not 50-50. But at the end of the day, if you make the Super Bowl, you've got a chance. And I think that McVay is no question a top 5 coach. I have him as a top 3 coach behind Belichick and Reed. And as we established on this call, you kind of can't count Belichick in there. And by the same argument, you maybe don't count Reed. Like if we're considering the best coaches to have this coming year, it's like Shanahan and McVay and like the younger guys that are kind of hotter. Like I'm giving Reed and Belichick there because of they're legendary and they have all the success. So if you take that away, McVay is maybe a top 2 coach, maybe even the best coach in the NFL. Like he's a guy that if you're going in, the worst case scenario is like you have a chance to win. Like you're never going to have a coaching mismatch with McVay. So I feel that there's too much for us. And, you get the bye week before the Super Bowl. If we make the bowl game, I think we can win. And I think that the NFC has never been weaker.
Yeah.
So like the Cowboys way worse than they were last year.
Yeah,
The Eagles are going to win that division, right? The Eagles,
I think so too.
The Eagles cannot get into a shootout with the Rams. They can't. They do not have the firepower. It doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts becomes God and he has a Patrick Mahomes year where he throws 50 touchdowns and he's not running it like crazy, which is how they're going to win games because he's going to be running it. If A.J. Brown is the Cooper Kupp year that they had last year, which is the best case scenario for the Eagles, they still can't really match up with the Rams. You put Jalen Ramsey on him. You have a little safety help over there. And then, okay, you're going to Devontae us to death. I don't really know if that's going to work. You have the best offensive line in the NFL, but we have Aaron Donald, so they kind of cancel out, right? So I don't like the Eagles aren't going to beat us in the playoffs. The Buccaneers aren't going to beat us in the playoffs. The only thing you have over us is Brady magic in the playoffs, which you weren't able to pull off last year. I don't like the Packers. If we play the Packers in Green Bay, we'll probably lose in the playoffs. But I don't know if they're going to make it. The 49ers are going to knock them out again. So, like, at the end of the day, I kind of got to go. At the end of the day, so I might just hop off and you guys can finish. But at the end of the day, my take is if we make the playoffs, which we should, if we make the playoffs, we can beat anybody to get to the Super Bowl. And I don't think we could beat anybody in the AFC. And I think there are a bunch of teams that if you told me make the Super Bowl for the AFC today, I would tell you, oh, yeah, the Rams won't beat them. But it's any given Sunday, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, and we've been there. And other than the Chiefs, nobody else in the AFC that's good has been there. Like the best teams at the top of the AFC, like the Bills, they haven't been there. They haven't been there. You know what I'm saying? I take our experience over them, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if we were in the AFC West instead of the NFC West, I think we could make the playoffs, but I think it'd be much harder to make a deep run. But I think because we're in the NFC and if we're healthy going into the playoffs, then I think we can still do damage. But, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. There's always one surprise team that gets into the playoffs, too.
And it's going to be the Chicago Bears. The grace of Justin Fields.
Moral of the podcast, the message that we want to send out after this podcast, I am converted. I can't wait to go to my best football buddy that I've been telling him Eberflus worst hire of the offseason. I'm going to go tell him, and I'm going to be like, I was wrong.
It took one interaction with a stranger over 2 hours for me to be convinced of something you've been trying to convince me of for months. That's exactly what you can tell him.
You've sold me completely. The message from this podcast about the Rams 2022 season is the Bears will be frisky in 2 years.
Would you go as far to say Justin Fields is the friskiest quarterback this team has ever had?
Oh, you got me there. I would go with. I will say that Justin Fields, he's a frisky guy. Let's get it going. All right, gentlemen, I got to head out. Great talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick before you dip, do you want to plug your Twitter or anything?
Yup. On Rams Twitter. If you're on Twitter, definitely probably know who I am. But if not, I'm at. This was when I didn't have a Twitter to be it was just at just to follow people because I didn't tweet or anything like that. But a couple people wished me a happy birthday, so I thought I'd start tweeting. So it's at just the number 2 FLLW and then PPL. But I think if you just search up Yup and you're a Rams fan, I'll come up immediately. And if not, if you just want to talk football, whatever, I'll do any of these podcasts. This was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I love your energy. We got to have you back on here at some point. Absolutely.
Anytime.
Okay, awesome.
And hey, feel free to use any of these clips for both of you, for TikTok, for YouTube, for Twitter, whatever you want, to even if you're making me look like a bozo, if I'm I don't like the Chargers this year and they go 17-0, show that. Look at this idiot. I don't like the Chargers this year. I think Brandon Staley is going to go for it on too many fourth downs at his own.
Brandon Staley is a goofball. I don't like him as a head coach.
I loved him as the Rams defensive.
He's a great defensive mind, but I don't like him as a head coach.
When the rumors were coming out when he lost that Raiders game that he was going to be fired, I've never been more excited in my life. I thought he was going to get fired and
come back to the Rams.
Come back to the Rams.
Although Raheem did well the second half, and
everybody on Rams Twitter hated him though before.
No, I know. I saw it.
Justice for Raheem. That guy's
the
man.
Yeah, he is. I'm surprised he didn't get a head coaching job, but yeah.
It's the you know what? That joke was made. I think Sean McVay made it, or maybe not. Maybe one of our reporters made it, and it was no problem. McVay, we keep losing our coaches. You know what? We just make all of our coaches black, and we'll keep them because the whole Brian Flores situation.
Yeah.
I hope not. I think that Raheem Morris should be a head coach. But, he's not. We'll probably lose him this year, though, because we keep all of our coordinators for 1 to 2 years.
Yep.
That's what it is. All right, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Nice meeting you, Alex.
Yes. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the both of you. This was very exciting for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
There should just be a button at the bottom that says Leave Studio.
Thank you, boss. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
LA Rams super fan on all platforms. I'm mostly active on TikTok. I do tweet a little bit, not quite as much as Alex, but I do, tweet from time to time. And I have an Instagram, same name and everything. But TikTok is where I live for my content for the most part. So I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Let's, you ever want to have me on again, I will.
Absolutely. Listen, closer to the playoffs, I'm probably going to do a little bit of something with all the playoff teams. And I think it's safe to assume the Rams are going to be there, whether or not they're 10-7, like Alex said, or 12-13 wins, whatever. So I'll probably just have you and Alex back on again to come talk about the Rams
closer to the playoffs, hopefully.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Again, thank you. I know
absolutely. No problem.
Way over. We got.
Hey, listen, it's no problem. I had one of these go 3 hours talking about the goddamn Colts. I'm not surprised we went 2.5 talking about the Rams.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
right.
So I'm gonna go ahead and do my outro. You can go if you have things to do. Yeah, you're good. I appreciate you coming on, like I said, and I'll make sure to have all your links in the description because Lord knows nobody's gonna want to type it out because everybody's lazy nowadays. But
for sure, definitely. Yep. So, all right, thanks again, man.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
Yep. Alrighty, that's going to do it for this episode of the Ball Knower. I'm not even looking at the camera. There we go. That's going to do it for this episode of the Ball Knower Podcast Team Preview Series. I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It was a ton of fun. Thanks again to Alex and Evan for coming on. It was great having them on. Alex is a fucking G with his energy, and Evan knows ball, obviously. So make sure to leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about the Rams this offseason. Maybe you're like Alex and you think they're going to struggle with their hard schedule, or you think they're like me. I didn't even give my record prediction. I think they're going to win 12 ball games. 12-5 is what I have them at, second in the NFC. So maybe you think you're more like me. Maybe you're more with Alex. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Either way, let us know down in the comments below. Maybe you want to yell at Alex for something he said, because he said a bunch of off-the-wall shit. So if that's something you're interested in, just make sure you leave a comment down below, and definitely leave a like. These are a ton of fun to record, but they do take time and effort out of my day. Like I said, we've been sitting here for 2.5 hours. I expect to be sitting here for an hour and a half. So I would really appreciate any of the support. You know, we're a growing YouTube channel. We just hit over 200 subs at the time of recording this. We're at like 207. So thank you guys so much. We're still trying to hit 250 by the time the season starts. So if we can get there, I would really appreciate it. Normal podcast episodes are, well, I don't know. I'm recording this a little bit in advance. I assume normal podcast episodes will resume by the time this is up. Andrew has been very busy, but we're going to have him back on, obviously, to do some normal stuff. And like I said, we're going to have a bunch of people come back on throughout the season. It's going to be a ton of fun during the season, ton of guests, talking a ton of football. So if you're interested in that, make sure you stick around. Once again, we are the Ball Knower Podcast. And to everyone out there watching, and also to my two guests that I keep pointing the wrong way, they were over here, to my two guests that are already gone, I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you thoroughly enjoy it, because you're all